Okay, welcome everyone to the regular council meeting of August 21st, 2023. Just so everyone knows, members can now be present in the council chambers during our meetings, and you can also watch the Zoom link, or the Zoom meeting, sorry, where you'll find the link on our City of Trail website. It is the webinar will be recorded and published to the city's YouTube site, sorry. So just a little bit of business before we get into the public question period. First on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes. The regular council meeting of July 17th, 2023, and the recommendation is that the minutes of the regular council meeting held July 17th, 2023 be adopted as circulated. And may I have that, Councillor Martin, Councillor Benson, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. This evening we have a delegation from BC Housing, and they are here to request the temporary use permit at 2039 Riverside Avenue. And I'd like to introduce Douglas Winter.
Thank you. Thanks for welcoming me here to Trail, councillors and Mayor Jones. I would like to now just do a brief presentation from BC Housing with regards to the work that we do here in the region and across the province, and as well to talk about tonight's shelter location. And I'll just begin with our land acknowledgement.
Can you speak up a little, please?
Sure. No problem. I realize we have a lot of folks very interested in tonight's presentation. So our land acknowledgement, BC Housing acknowledges that we conduct many of our activities on the homelands of thousands of Indigenous peoples and many nations across British Columbia. Each has their own unique traditions, cultures, worldviews, and languages and history. We have much to learn from Indigenous ways of knowing and being in the world. We are committed to adopting the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada calls to action. Thank you. So I just wanted to speak briefly about what we do at BC Housing. And essentially, we are developing and managing and administering many different forms and types of social housing across our province. And we work to house many different types of folks in different situations, beginning with people who are suffering homelessness or on the edge of homelessness, those who are have disabilities, Indigenous peoples, women and children who are fleeing violence, low-income seniors and families, and all the way to people who are wanting to get into the housing market and first-time home buyers. So we look at the whole spectrum of housing across our province and our population. So this spectrum, as I've alluded to, we look on the left side of our screen here, we look really to begin at where many of our citizens need shelter and need homes. Many who do not have that stability in their lives. And so we work with our shelters, and then we look to provide second stage housing in more permanent, full-time, 24/7 supportive housing buildings, projects. And then on to areas where we have social housing, where we provide supports for people in our own buildings and and in other operator nonprofit buildings as well. And then within the existing private market, we look to provide support for seniors and families with shelter aid and also rental assistance programs. So those are to help people to stay in their homes or who are in rental situations where they need financial assistance. And so we meet them where they're at and provide that top up that they need to make their rental payments each month. And then the farther end of the housing spectrum is really trying to create affordable pockets of rental in the private market and working with developers as well to create incentives, and with municipalities to create incentives so that we can continue to build buildings and multi-family buildings with affordable rental housing within them. So that's where our housing hub comes in. So that's a brief overview of some of what we do. And how do we work together? Really, we would not be able to do any of this work without partnership. We rely heavily on our nonprofit and Indigenous partnerships with our federal government and counterparts to provide funding and creative financing for our projects. And then, of course, we look to our healthcare providers, Interior Health, to help us with providing care and services within our buildings and for our populations that we are looking to house. So in the provincial government, of course, ourselves, we look to other parties within the government to help provide financing and create those structures that will facilitate our ability to move our projects forward. And that comes down to local governments. And I can't stress enough here, as we are in Trail across the province, we are heavily reliant on our partnerships with our local municipalities. We look to you to help us to provide financial incentives through relaxation of or lowering of property taxes or development cost charges to alleviate those, to help us with infrastructure costs, and to help us with rezoning and bylaw amendments. So all of these pieces are crucial for us to actually see a project succeed. And if any one of these parts are missing, we find that it's not viable to go forward with a project. So just to give you a picture of our partnerships being a crucial part. Now, what is happening in Trail? As many of you know, we have a housing crisis in many of our municipalities. We know that it's very acute here in Trail. And many of you know better than I that we have many folks who are without shelter. Not only without shelter, excuse me, but are without homes. So that is really why we're here tonight. We're here to talk about how do we help those in our community who are most vulnerable, who need shelter, and really, at the end of the day, need help to have a home. The current shelter, as we know on Bay Street, is inadequate. It's not sufficient to continue operating long-term. We've known that for a long time. we all know the problems that and the challenges that Sheila and her team have faced there. There's no outdoor amenity. There is substandard conditions within the shelter, and there's not enough space. So what we're looking at today and what we have looked at prior to is an appropriate place to have a temporary shelter that would be intentionally, purposely built for housing people for short-term stays until we can help them move into more stable housing long-term. And the place that we're looking at now is at Riverside Avenue. And if we approve this tonight, we will look to try and get this shelter in as quickly as possible by this winter. So we're talking over 2023, 2024, early 2024. Hopefully the sooner the better. And so this is the site we're looking at here. You can see it's between the Columbia River Skywalk, Rotary Park, the old bridge along Riverside. Many of you are familiar with this. And we have looked at this parcel as being an opportunity to place 5 modular units that will be complex together and provide 25 beds for those who are seeking and need shelter. And we know that's not sufficient even in the current state for everybody who needs shelter. We'll get to that in a bit. And so you can sort of see the outline there. And then I'll just move to our next slide here. What are the benefits of modular shelter units? You can see some examples from other modular units that we've built. So we have designated kitchen, hygiene facilities, common areas and individual sleeping areas. Individual rooms allow shelter guests to gain independence and help them to their next stage of housing. It's quick construction. So often what we do, we'll take these where an oil camp, lumber camp has finished their use with them. They're often sometimes not that old, only 8 years old, so they're fairly new buildings, and we retrofit them for residential purposes to meet our BC housing standards and guidelines. It's an efficient installation, and it's able to be relocated in the future, so it's temporary. So, and that's, I think, one of our biggest advantages in this location as well, because we know that this is not the final solution for our housing crisis here in Trail. It's really a stepping stone for us to look to provide more housing, more permanent housing for people, again, across that spectrum. So you'll see some images here that we're just looking at what, these are some standard things that come with our modular housing installations that we look to provide fencing and a secure area. Something that we don't have currently in the Bay Avenue area, that there's a place that people can go and have planting gardens, can have a place, outdoor smoking gazebos or gathering places. And so those are crucial as well to really find a sense of place there and a sense of community. And now I'd like to pass this next portion on to our regional operational person, Cheryl. She is on screen there. Unfortunately, I don't think, can we get her on the screen? No. Okay, no worries. So Cheryl, I think you'll have to speak up very loudly.
Great, thank you, Douglas. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I think we're just gonna turn you up there.
Okay.
That's as high as I go. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Cheryl.
Thank you, Douglas. So my name is Cheryl Rupta, so I'm the Regional Operations Manager for the Interior. As Douglas mentioned, we're here to do a temporary use permit for the site on Riverside. So I'm just going to go over some operational slides here. So as it was mentioned previously, our current shelter on Bay Avenue is inadequate for what shelters services that we would like to provide. Right now, that shelter can only accommodate 18 overnight guests, and they do provide a support such as breakfast and lunch, laundry, and clothing, and some harm reduction supplies. For Trail, we know there's about 45 active homelessness cases that is present, and there is no other option for another shelter in Trail right now for people who are experiencing homelessness. So as Douglas mentioned, pathways to homelessness can come in many forms. Some of it is due to poverty, some could be discrimination, the lack of housing affordability, as we all know throughout many communities, the vacancy rate is very low. And even if you could afford to rent, the rent is very high. The impact of colonization on Indigenous people is another form. And individuals do come with history and background. Some may be due to traumatic events in their life, separation from family. There may be some mental health issues, some addictions, and maybe some other physical and health issues that prevent them from having a home at the current stage. And we also do have some system failures, and we do recognize that. There are barriers to accessing public systems. You know, sometimes there's a complexity of even filling out applications and know what's available to individuals. Transition planning from people who are in foster care. We do realize that sometimes there's no option for those individuals once they age out of the system. And just the discharge from hospitals. We have heard even elderly people who go into hospital for a procedure and it gets delayed, or the hospital stay is longer than anticipated, and they have no way of contacting their landlord during that time, have lost their homes, so they too are experiencing homelessness. And then just to touch base slightly on the safety and security measures that we are planning for this shelter. There will be on-site 24/7 staff that will provide supports to the individuals. And that could be supports in terms of meals, life skills, and training. Douglas had already mentioned that the site will be fully fenced and monitored with cameras. So staff will have access to cameras throughout the site at 24/7. And we'll have lighting. And we'll also we have recognized the importance of the outreach workers that are currently doing their job at Bay Avenue. And part of that outreach worker is from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And part of that funding had come from UBCM during COVID. Now that that funding is no longer available, BC Housing has made the decision to continue with that funding because we know the importance that it has provided for the community as far as the downtown area to ensure, garbage is picked up and needles are picked up, and even providing, naloxone when somebody has overdose. So that's something that we'll carry out with this shelter. And it's just to create a safe space for individuals who come. So the shelter will not be a drop-in shelter like it is currently at Bay Avenue. The shelter will be only for people who have a bed in the shelter, and they are the only ones that can access the service to the shelters. So this is going to be a slightly different model than what the community is used to, but I believe that this model will help provide better services and better neighborhoods and good neighbors for the community. So the next thing I have is, we are trying to work together, and because we don't have a service provider selected at the moment, a lot of the operational details is not available currently. We do have a request for proposal out publicly right now to find an operator, and that proposal closes on September 6th. So once our team has done the evaluation and selected an operator, we will go into more of the operational details with them. But during that time, we will also be creating a food call situation, and this information packet will be available to anybody who would like it, and will be handed out to the neighbors. And then that's the end of our presentation. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back to Mayor Jones and the councilors for any questions that they may have for us. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, I'm going to see if council has any questions or comments before we move on to the public question period. Councilor Wilson?
I can start if you don't mind. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm sitting next to Douglas, so it's tough to yell and talk to him at the same time, but I'd like to get a firm start date from you guys. I think when we first met, it was November, and now your language is winter 2024.
So just to clarify, starting planning construction, or you mean
Operation.
Operational, okay, yes. Yeah, I would begin with some of the how we arrived today, the end of August. We would have hoped to have been much farther along. We know the temporary use permit for the existing Bay Avenue shelter ends at the end of September. And our plan originally was to, had we been over at Roslyn or another site, to have a shelter in place prior to that. Unfortunately, some of the complexities with Riverside Avenue have taken a lot longer to overcome. So we actually had looked at Riverside. It was brought up one time before we went to the Roslyn Avenue site. And I think, we dismissed it at that point because there were a lot of complexities. But now that this was really one of our only options left, we dove and dug into the complexity. So sorry for the long-winded answer, but we had to negotiate with Crown Land Agency because they have part of the land as well as the city. So that provided considerable delay, and a number of other, the floodplain and ensuring geotechnical stability of the slopes. So all of those things led us to here we are today, discussing this temporary use permit on this site. So we're saying as soon as we have the green light to go ahead, we will work as fast as we can. We have a number of our consultants who have already looked at the site and done some preliminary concept design work and tried to understand what it will take to get the modular units and final site landscaping, all of that in place. So that's really where we're looking at, as soon as possible, but I think realistically we're somewhere in the end of this year, beginning of next.
So December, January.
Yeah.
Okay. I just have one more question, and that's it for me for the night. My last question is, you guys are asking for 3 years plus the 1 year extension. Why should we give you that much time?
Right.
Considering we gave you the time now.
Yeah.
And we've overshot it already, so.
Yeah, well, I come back to the fact that BC Housing has been working and collaborating and partnering with the city to find a solution. It's not an easy problem to solve. And I think that the reason for the delays are that we had a potential site, and that was voted down, we respect that decision. And so then we pursued this option, and as I said, there are quite a few complexities to this site. It's not an easy site to build on, even in a temporary modular condition. So we're at this point now. I think that why should you extend us for 3+1 if we need that? Is that really we see this, as I'll come back to this statement, we see this as really a temporary installation. So there's nothing at the moment beyond September, the end of September, for shelter within Trail. And so we need to solve the bigger housing crisis here. And we know that, we've been working on that for a long time. And so hand in hand with this shelter is a search and a work on permanent supportive housing, as well as other pieces of housing that need to come to Trail as well. So, but really these two go together. Every municipality that we found success is that we have a shelter and permanent supportive housing, where people make that transition from the shelter to more stable housing, and then hopefully onto the broader market.
Councilor Benson.
Thanks, Douglas and Cheryl, for your presentation. I have 3 questions. Actually, 4 questions. So this is the first step would be a temporary use permit. If this is voted through tonight, there would be a development permit next, and then a
Building permits.
building permit. Would we have any oversight in that? Do you usually work with the municipalities on this?
Yes.
And also with the RFP you mentioned for the service provider is out, do we have any opinions on how that?
Well, I'll start first with the building,
Yeah.
because I think that's, so to explain that clearly, yes, we are, even though we're a provincial government organization, we have to work obviously with the municipality, and we want to work with municipality. I met with Colin earlier today with his staff and the RDKB staff as well, to look at the potential site plan, its constraints, to look at any potential variances. We do know a big variance for this site will be the setback from the high water mark. It's not typical to be where that is, but we also have consultants who have looked at the safety of that as well. So I would say that, so we need to abide by the zoning bylaw regulations, and we will seek to do that in partnership with the city of RDKB. As far as the operations piece, I may just call on Cheryl to speak to that. Cheryl, did you get the question?
Yeah, I think the question was in the RFP process, if the municipality or the councillors have any input into who we select. The question?
Yeah.
Okay, so normally municipalities don't evaluate or request for proposals. So that is on my team and myself and RD to evaluate. And in that request for proposal sets up a series of criteria that the proponent would need to answer. And based on their answers, we would give them on that, what the information that they provide. And we can only mark based on the proposal itself, not on any knowledge of the provider that we have, just on the proposal.
Thank you. Just one more, and then we can, I'm sure someone else has some questions that I have. Cheryl, this would be a question for you as well, as it's a little bit on operations, but a lot of the feedback I received with the current shelter is just the increase of sirens in the area. And that last slide you showed talked about the different services provided. And if naloxone is on site and readily available through the support workers, would we have less sirens accessing the shelter that we currently do, because it can be quite triggering for people in our community with a lot of sirens going off.
Okay, I mean, if you're talking about sirens and being able to turn that off, is that the question?
First responders going downtown to the current shelter. I'm just wondering if there would be a change with the services at a typical BC housing shelter with the services provided. Do you see that amount of sirens just to limit the noise and it can be quite triggering to some community members?
BC Housing doesn't control first responder sirens, whether they have it on or off. That's something that your first responders would have to come up with a solution on that. So I can't answer that question. That would go back to your emergency response teams.
I'd just add to that though, Cheryl, that I think when we consider, what is being provided at the site, we have, a secure property, we have people who are registered and have, that had an intake with staff to be in the shelter, that there's 24/7 staff on site, and there's, support from Interior Health at that location. That my assumption, Cheryl, maybe you can speak to this, is that the reduction of services needed and required would be significant compared to having no shelter or compared to potentially the Bay Avenue site current conditions, so.
Yeah, and I would tend to agree with that, Douglas. I mean, we have seen a reduction in our other shelters because we have the services there and because we're providing individuals and connecting them with services to help them with their mental health and their addiction and all of that, and we're really partnering with Interior Health and having those discussions with them now as far as what services they can provide to come on site and provide those. So my assumption would be that we will see a bit of a decrease in it, but I don't know what that decrease will look like until the shelter's up and running.
Thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Douglas, when I went to Kelowna in June and I toured the Stephen Village, which is a supportive housing unit. I also then met with Amanda from the John Howard Society. And what I understand, in that neighborhood originally, no one wanted it there. It is in a semi-residential, semi-commercial area. Seniors, houses, condos were all adjacent to where this building was located. So it went ahead, but the way that they mitigated a lot of that was that they started having meetings between the residents, BC Housing, Interior Health, the shelter operator, and IH. So that way, as issues came up, they could be readily addressed. So can you speak to that, and is this something you're planning on doing with this location?
Again, I'll talk maybe about the fact that, Cheryl's mentioned this, I'll let her follow up from this, but that we have funding now for outreach support workers as well. Community engagement for that piece. It was funded under a different program up until this recently. So BC Housing is now taking that on to provide extra funding for community engagement. And Cheryl, maybe do you want to speak a bit further to that?
Thank you, and Councillor Hanson, thank you for your comment. Stevens Village is a supportive housing site, so it's slightly different than a shelter. So it is operated differently and the engagement is a little different. So for this shelter, there will be a direct contact. It will be the provider. So people who have any concerns or questions can direct it directly to the provider. They'll have contact information and that will be shared, as I mentioned before, like who to call, when to call. And as we said, we are planning on continuing the outreach support workers who will be going around, the immediate kind of area, including Rotary Park and the Riverside corridor. So if people do have issues, they can talk to them at that time, or they can direct their concerns to the shelter operators themselves. But we are going to try every effort with BC Housing and the nonprofits to be good neighbors. So when guests do come onto the shelter, they will be informed what a good neighbor expectation will be. The provider will help them become good neighbors.
Okay, Councillor Cass, is that everything, Councillor Hanson?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cassel.
Thank you, Douglas. Thank you, Cheryl. I just wanted to touch on the outreach. First of all, I appreciate the fact that you are deviating from your model and doing this outreach piece, because to me, it is essential. If this shelter is ever going to sustain a good neighbor status, this outreach is a key piece. I was looking at your summary this morning provided on your community engagement page, and it said BC Housing would provide additional funding to support the outreach work to an identified area along Riverside Avenue, including Rotary Park. So my question is, can we extend that area of responsibility to include the west entrance to the Skybridge and also Groudage Avenue? Because there are 5 residences on Groudage Avenue which will be impacted by this new shelter location, because that would be a pedestrian site or pedestrian route from the shelter into the downtown. So my question is, and maybe it's too soon to say, but my question is, can we extend that area of responsibility to include Groudage Avenue and the west end of the walking bridge?
Yeah, and let me start by providing comment on this. This was discussed at length as well, or comments we've received around this. So I think we've heard those concerns, and we feel like it is important that we provide that outreach to the neighborhood as well. I think from our perspective, we want to provide some boundaries, and I don't think we necessarily decided where those should be. I think we should take that into consideration as well, and where that should be, and also the time frame for that, because although we provide 24/7 support on site for our residents, it's not within our mandate or the shelter operators mandate to provide 24/7 let's say security for the neighborhood as well. I think that's a bit outside of our scope, but I think from an outreach and community engagement piece, I think it makes sense that we have it at the plan area. It is possible maybe we can consider the Groudage, edge of the Groudage neighborhood as well. We internally had talked about that area of Rotary Park and along Riverside and the pedestrian bridge.
Well, yeah, you're going that far to take in those 16 residences to the east of Riverside. That should be part of that zone I'm talking about. And it would be about equal distance to go to the west, like in towards Trail, to cover the Rotary Park, the west end of the walking bridge, and then that short little Groudage Avenue area.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking for.
Yeah, I think definitely we can consider that. I'm not at this point gonna make a commitment.
No, I realize that.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, definitely, we should consider that.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Martin.
Thank you. Douglas, I just need clarification for some numbers in your presentation. There's 25 beds, 18 overnight, and the number 40. It's my mistake. I didn't write down what the number 40 came from.
I think that's the current demand. Now, I'll let Cheryl just clarify that, but I mean, just to give some context as well, that we understand that the Castlegar shelter has been closed. We've had a migration of people who were from Trail, many of them who have roots in Trail come back to Trail. There has been an increase in demand for shelter services within this community. And so I think that number is a recent number of what the demand is. 18 beds is what the current Bay Avenue shelter is designated for. So is that correct, Cheryl?
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. Yeah, so right now our sources is from the Career Development Services that provided those numbers to us. So the 18 is the current shelter occupancy at Bay Avenue. We're hoping to do 20 at this new shelter, and currently there's 45 active homeless case filed. Did that answer your question, or do you need?
Yes,
more?
thank you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
And we know why the Castlegar one shut down?
I'll get you to ask that during the public question period, please.
Scott, one more question. When does the new permit start if it goes through? Is that first day of operation? When does it?
Yeah,
When
good
does
question.
it time start?
We have it still in occupancy, little permit.
Yeah.
We need, okay, so we'll know, no rush this time.
Yeah, for us.
Thank you.
Okay, I do have a couple of questions myself, and I think it was Cheryl that talked about the 24/7 staffing, access to security lighting and enhanced security within the area. And I was wondering, with the 24 staffing, is there certain times that they get the extra support, extra services that they need from Interior Health during the day, or is that something that is sort of stretched out over the day? I guess I just, kind of want to understand when Interior Health is in there reaching out to people, because I think that's an important issue that we have to look at, a subject that should be discussed here. And if I could, just one more question, we talk about it not being a drop-in center. So we have 20 to 25 individuals at the center. They could be there for a month, they could be there for 6 months. What is the stipulation for that? Because then it's obvious that people aren't coming and going. So they would basically be in that area on a full-time basis. I don't know what that looks like.
Thank you for your questions, Mayor Jones. So I'll address the first one with Interior Health. I don't know the full details with Interior Health yet, because we haven't gone to that stage yet, but in our other shelters, Interior Health staff do come on Monday to Friday during working hours, because those are the hours that they work. It may change for this community once we get into more discussions with them about what services they can provide and when. So once we have that information, we'll definitely share it with you. As for this not being a drop-in center style shelter, this is in line with all of the other shelters that we have throughout the region. So this shelter will be for people who have beds in the shelter. As far as access to those beds, it can range. Some people come in for 1 night and leave, some stay for 2. Others have stayed for 6 months. Like we said, we are actively working with the community and with the municipality and finding more of a permanent solution. And that is another reason why we're wanting the shelter for 3 years plus 1 year, because it gives us a little bit of a stability. Otherwise, we're constantly on reactive mode, right? Like if it's only from 1 year, we're in that, out of that 1 year, 8 months out of that year, we're trying to find another location. So it doesn't really help us in trying to do that more stabilized permanent housing. So hopefully that answers your questions. And I know 25 does not meet the needs of your community right now, but that's not any different than any other municipalities that we're working with. The need far exceeds what we can provide at this point, but at least, it ensures 25 people have a safe place over their head for the day and the night.
Okay, and I do have one more question, if you don't mind. Now, council has heard that this is going to be a wet shelter where people are able to use drugs and alcohol while they're at the shelter. Now, is that the responsibility of BC Housing to make sure that doesn't happen, or the operators?
So we don't have a wet site. It's not a term that we use. What we can use is like an OPS, which is, so I'm just gonna get the term up here for you. So that is overdose prevention services. So what a lot of these shelter sites will have is a medical room. And in that medical room, doctors and nurses and Interior Health can utilize it too. And another function for that room is for people to use safely, so that they do have oversight of staff who can onto overdoses immediately. Somebody is in danger. We have had great success And so this is a low barrier shelter, so we're meeting people at where they're at, so they don't have to come in over and not on drugs.
So my final question is, I don't know, is the stipulation of the operators as well to have them trained in harm reduction?
Yes, so the operators will have multiple trainings such as harm reduction, they'll have nonviolent crisis intervention, they'll have mental health first aid, a lot of that training we provide through BC Housing and others get the other organizations. So we'll have training too, so that they can support the individuals.
Okay. Thank you very much, Cheryl and Douglas, thank you. So if there's no more questions from council, we're going to move into the public question period. So I'm ready to go here. So just a couple of things while we get into the question period. If you would like to address council at this time, I would ask that you come up to the podium, state your name, your address.
Right there, you got right here, right here.
Hold on, we're not ready yet.
That's okay, I am.
Tonight, we are limiting speaking to 2 minutes. All questions and comments will come through the chair, please, and I'll direct them to the proper staff or BC Housing member. When present in the meeting, we ask that there's no sidebar conversations, please. It's difficult to hear in here as it is. We ask you to sit quietly while people are speaking, not to be disruptive. And if you could possibly shut your cell phones off, because we just had a couple of phones go off already. We really want to have a respectful conversation with our community tonight, so please be respectful and refrain from any cheering or jeering or whatever you want to call it. I want to say that if anybody has provided a written submission, please know that they've been received and considered. It's not necessary to restate your views again if they have been provided in writing either to BC Housing, Community Relations email, or directly to the City of Trail or Trail City Council. So I don't know if everybody knows, but paper copies of the submissions and consultations were made available in the foyer for people attending the meeting tonight. The information is also available on the BC Housing Let's Talk page. So there is no speakers list tonight. So it's just, you know, as you come up to the podium, please state your name and your address.
Okay, my name is Gail Bowman, and I live on 108 College Street in Trail. I do street ministry here. I spend a lot of time at the shelter. I've been addicted myself. I haven't been homeless. I've been blessed to have a home and a job most of my life. But I know the intricate details of what's going on downtown, and I see both sides of the problem. As I am half Aboriginal and half Caucasian, I also see the public view and the people that are homeless. I see their view as well. And the issue of housing is the last problem of a long list of problems. Detox has to be number one, and recovery number two. A wet shelter and expect no crime to happen, no violence to happen, no physical, mental, emotional breakdowns to happen, because that's inherently involved in the problems, and it is affecting our general society. And these people are people. There's somebody's son, daughter, somebody's brother, friend, and we have to ask them what they think about all of this. Has anybody addressed any of them on this subject? It breaks my heart because I know these people. I talk to them, I feed them, I love them. And this is wrong for our society to plunk them in a chained in fence and not treat them as individuals and as people. And the general public is at risk 24/7 because of this. You have 2 or 3 people that are a problem, and it's affecting the whole issue of that alleyway and of all the people coming and going from there. And the people that aren't heavily addicted coming in and out and being exposed to that. And maybe on that day, they wouldn't do drugs if that drug wasn't there. We have to address these issues long before homelessness comes into it. Seriously.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Janet Morton, and personally, I reside at 2523 Irwin Avenue in the city of Rossland. But I'm here tonight representing the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society, which owns, and I will say, pays taxes on 3 properties in Trail, containing a total of 15 units of affordable rental housing for low to moderate income individuals and families capable of independent living. We also own and are developing additional units in Rossland and Fruitdale, and certainly have an interest in continuing to work with Trail to expand its options for affordable housing. On behalf of the LCHS, and please pardon me for shortening a very long title, we tend to go for those long names around here. On behalf of the LCHS, I'm here to urge each of you to vote in favor of the temporary use permit tonight that will allow BC Housing to proceed with the proposed emergency shelter on Riverside Avenue, and as well to find a mechanism to extend the use of the current shelter until the new one is ready for occupancy. Particularly in the face of today's current housing crisis, as a community, we have a moral obligation to find a means to provide shelter and support to those who are most vulnerable, and it is the full range of support we need to provide. The life stories of those living precariously in and around downtown Trail today are ones filled with multiple losses, tragedies, and traumas that, if we had experienced them personally, very well could have brought us to our knees. An emergency shelter is an imperfect solution, and as Douglas has said, it needs to be accompanied by supportive housing with 24/7 staffing and well-coordinated wraparound services. But we do know that when people are housed, they actually will begin to reach out for some of those other supports. Voting no to the current proposal is not a solution. In so doing, the problem very simply will not go away. Yes, there'll be some in and outflow of individuals, but we know from communities right across the country that this vulnerable population will continue to be with us. Without a shelter, these folks will be living rough along the river, in the bush, in stairwells, or be huddled together in squats or other overpopulated substandard housing where the capacity to deliver the wraparound supports becomes more challenging, less effective, and frankly, more expensive. By voting yes to the temporary use permit, you'll be showing the moral courage required of today's leaders. You will have your naysayers and people who are disappointed with you fully understand, but in voting yes, you'll be showing leadership, standing up in partnership with BC Housing, with community organizations, individuals and businesses that are already contributing to much needed supports for this population, and to organizations like the LCHS that can help you develop a continuum of housing, with help from BC Housing, of course, the continuing of housing needed by all of us living, working, and volunteering in the community we love. So I thank you, and once again, I appeal to you to vote yes tonight.
Ms. Jones, you gave us a 2-minute time limit.
Yes.
I have prepared on behalf of my fellow residents of Riverside Avenue, I've prepared a bit of a document here. It's probably going to take about 10 minutes, but I'm sure that they'd be happy to give up their 2 minutes each so that they can hear this. Is that acceptable?
Yep. I would ask council, how do you feel about that?
Just a question, you're representing the Riverside Avenue residents?
Yes, I'm not representing them, but this is.
Do you live on Riverside Avenue?
I do.
Excuse me, Councillor Michael.
Sorry, Mayor Jones.
That's okay. I think that it would be appropriate for you to speak tonight, but before you go, get started, please give me your name, and I kind of have an idea of your address, but you need to state your address as well.
Certainly will. My name is Clarence Doherty, DOHERTY, and my address is 2264 Riverside Avenue. Okay. A little bit of all over the place. I mean, we were not exactly allowed a lot of time to prepare anything. But we have some very important concerns we felt. Made up a few copies here so you can come and read along with me. I'm sure that will help.
To save you some time.
Another part of my 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We got it, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, hi, this is Ernest Doherty. I'm the owner of 2264 Riverside Avenue, and I appreciate this this opportunity to address Trail City Council and others tonight. Prior to this evening, I have never attended a town or city hall meeting. This is noteworthy because I also own a property at 368 Rossland Avenue in Trail. Yet I chose not to attend the recent meetings regarding the issuing of a temporary use permit to accommodate a 25-bed shelter there. Would such action have a detrimental impact on the neighborhood and my investment? Yes, of course it would. But I felt there was some sound reasoning in that selection. You have multiple unimpeded accesses in and exits out of the area. You have a modern multi-lane roadway with handicap compliant sidewalks on each side, and a fire department almost next door to help address some of the elevated emergency needs these shelter areas tend to experience. Nevertheless, Trail City Council voted almost unanimously to reject the application. And BC Housing has since requested a temporary use permit to allow aforesaid 25-bed shelter at 2039 Riverside Avenue. In response to this request, we, the undersigned residents of Riverside Avenue, basically it's everyone except two people. We, the undersigned residents of Riverside Avenue, would like to bring forth a number of pre-existing health and safety concerns likely to cause serious injury and or death that we currently have regarding the Riverside area and associated infrastructure. Furthermore, let it be known that we, the undersigned, do firmly believe the measure of unsafeness could increase exponentially to an unacceptable level as a result of authorized and unauthorized use of the area caused by a tripling of the population, such as we expect with the opening of a 25-bed shelter at 2039 Riverside Ave. Health and safety concern number one. We, the undersigned, do verily believe that the Riverside area from 1769 to 2278 Riverside Ave and spanning the area from the Columbia River to Topping Street is, and for some time has been, inherently unsafe. The safety concerns we are referring to in health and safety concern number one include an unstable riverbank, due in part to nature, man-made controls, and the unauthorized development by the present homeless population, excessive water accompanied with poor drainage in the hillside, an abundance of unstable rocks and gravel on the hillside, and our biggest fear, an abundance of easily combustible grass, brush, trees, and aging houses covering the entire region from the Columbia River up to Topping Street. The risks and consequences associated with the above conditions include trips, falls, and drownings causing injury or death, land, mud, and rock slides causing injury, death, and property damage, grass, forest, and structure fires causing injury, death, and property damage. We're referring actually to the use of the area or the unauthorized use, people walking up and down the hills. We have bears walking up and down there, the rocks rolling down on the houses and the people. With the addition of a lot of extra people, we figured this situation would be a lot worse. Moving on, health and safety concern number two. We, the undersigned, do sincerely believe that the integrity of the Riverside Avenue roadbed and retaining wall from 1769 to 2278 Riverside Avenue is, and for some time has been, severely compromised, and as such poses significant safety concern likely to result in serious injury and or death to persons walking, biking, or driving on aforesaid avenue. The concerns, conditions we are referring to in health and safety concern number 2 include water pooling on the roadway, ice forming on the roadbed, dips and bumps in and on the roadbed, pinch points along the roadway, broken and uneven pavement, inadequate width to accommodate large converging vehicles, and excessive use of the roadway by large and oversized vehicles. The risks and consequences of the above conditions include trips and falls causing injury or death, veering causing pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicle collisions, sudden and uncontrolled stops causing collisions, encroaching the oncoming traffic causing collisions, encroaching the accompanying walkway causing vehicle pedestrian collisions, and loss of control of bicycle and vehicles causing property damage and collisions. Of note here, one of the biggest concerns is the width of the Riverside Avenue Road. We're talking about fire trucks coming up and down there, and I know they're good drivers, and I doubt if there's one that could stay in the lane for the whole trip, right from Bay Avenue down to this shelter station. Health and safety concerns number 3. We, the undersigned, we sincerely believe that the integrity of the walkway adjoining and parallel to the Riverside Avenue roadbed is, and for some time has been, severely compromised, and as such poses significant safety concerns likely to result in serious injury or death to persons walking and or biking on aforesaid walkway. The concerns, conditions we are referring to in health and safety concern number 3 include runoff water pooling on the walkway, excessive snow and ice buildup on the walkway, broken and uneven pavement, walkway is dangerously sloped toward Riverside Avenue roadbed, walkway is routinely used for vehicle parking, walkway is routinely used to accommodate converging vehicles traveling the Riverside roadway. Walkway is incapable of accommodating mobility challenged people or their vehicles. The risks and consequences of the above conditions include trips and falls causing injury or death, bicycles, vehicles, and pedestrian collisions causing injury and or death due to vehicles encroaching the walkway and or pedestrians encroaching the roadway to avoid obstacles. In summary, we'd like to apologize for any shortcomings in our presentation. We were given very little time to coordinate and prepare this document. Irregardless, we feel we have adequately demonstrated that due to the lack of modern infrastructure and the vulnerability created by the sensitive hillside environment, the overnight doubling or tripling of this area's population would likely make the area unsafe for all. Bearing this in mind, we are hopeful City Council will quash this temporary use application tonight. In lieu of this, we suggest a prudent alternative would be to put the decision on hold until after the city has an independent body conduct a proper safety audit to confirm or dispute our assessment. This shelter is not a life or death emergency requiring immediate construction. Safety for all concerned has to be the first priority. In fact, does anyone here recall how the city came to be in possession of 1995 Riverside Avenue, a neighboring property to this shelter site? Well, that was the pink house we building it a few years ago. A vehicle lost control on Riverside Avenue, crossed the Riverside Avenue walkway, and crashed into the living room, narrowly missing Billy. In the aftermath, the owner had insurance replaced the front of the house and then sold it, with the city becoming the new owner. I don't recall any improvements to the road after that incident. We'd like to close out with a few excerpts from a report at www.castlegarnews.com pertaining to Castlegar's homeless district, which is basically becoming ours now. Quote, more than 15% of the Castlegar Fire Department's calls during 2022 were made to the area in and around the Way Up shelter at 1660 Columbia Avenue. If 15% of our fire department calls are going to be going up and down Riverside Avenue, you cannot imagine how that's not a safety problem. Quote, the Castlegar Fire Department responded to 33 fires, including abandoned campfires, landscape fires, and vehicle fires. We have a hillside out there, exactly the same as the hillside in West Kelowna. This is on fire, always isn't yet. I think we should keep it that way. There were also 12 man-down calls, not even sure what they are or what it means. Well, I did actually, I Googled it, it says it means man down. So kind of irrelevant, but it's part of the code. As of the end of February, Castlegar Fire Department has been called out to the shelter 12 times so far in 2023, accounting for 11% of the department's call volume. Those calls included 7 overdoses and 4 fires, including a structure fire. And might I remind you, that was only a 13-bed facility. BC Housing and City of Trail are proposing a 25-bed shelter in a much more vulnerable area. Thank you. Room for 12 properties on top.
I am Gary Stewart. I'm 2205 Rockland Avenue, but I am moving, so what's new, everybody? Okay, so I'm 75 years old. I've lived in Trail. I was born and raised in downtown Trail. I walked the streets as a young boy, and I was on my tricycle as a young boy. And I played behind liquidation work. We played shinny, we played guns and Indians. No offense anyway. But anyway, now you walk down there and it's abhorrent what's happening. So I have 3 questions. The first question, and you can answer this after. The first question is, who owns the property on Riverside Avenue? The second question, a young lady back here asked, and I'll ask because she might not have a chance, why was the Castlegar shelter closed? And the third question, I'll save till the end, but 25 to 30 years ago, the government made a big mistake. They closed all the mental health facilities in BC and put all these people on the street. So now I think it's payback for the government. My one thing that I'll say here is we have sirens going on here constantly. Okay, and every time there's a problem up here at the I need a microphone in my hand, I just don't feel comfortable. Up here at the up the Gulch, what's that, regional district? The fire department is there. And one of those things comes roaring out, and at the same time, an ambulance comes from the hospital. My question is this, why don't you take the ambulances that are in a shelter up there? Why don't you take the ambulances and park them down here beside the fire department and build your shelter in that facility and add on your 2 buildings, attach that facility? You've already got security. You've got all the doctors and the nurses there on site. I mean, it's an easy fix. We're going down here. Let's take these people and put them in.
Sorry, thank you, but your time's up.
2 minutes is up. All right. Somebody continue with that.
Can I,
I've got 2 extra.
I will actually pull Cheryl if she's still online. I'm not sure she is. Yeah, Cheryl, can you just speak clearly about the Castlegar shelter?
Yeah, I know, sure, Douglas. So the Castlegar shelter was not a year-round shelter. It was a temporary shelter for the winter. So normally our temporary shelters run from November to the end of March. And in this case, this is what happened with Castlegar. And also with Castlegar, they had gone through some staffing changes, so they did not have enough staff to continue operations. And that's why it closed.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Greetings, Mayor and Council. My name is Joanne Brown. My address is 1100 Tamarack Avenue. If I could just say this before I'm going to read a letter. My daughter was driving on her motorcycle down Riverside, and a truck was coming the other way and almost clipped her up against that rock wall. So I can speak to that. She was very scared when that happened. So it is very narrow, and she's on a motorcycle. So just saying, I agree with this man. Okay, so I am here to read a letter from Tawny Stewart. She could not be here tonight, so I'm ready for her. Okay, Tawny Stewart is a managing broker, a realtor, and a licensed property manager. She says to City of Trail and members of public attending regarding the safe injection site. I have been working in the downtown core since 2005, 1358 Cedar Avenue. Over the years, I have seen productive and vast improvements in the city core with additions of bump out benches, planters with gorgeous flowers, tree management, fun family events such as markets and parades, bold street markets, several new businesses and improvements to buildings from dedicated and stable business owners. Recently, I have seen an increase in crime, break-ins, vandalism, tent cities, drug abuse, panhandling, fires, and overdoses on the very benches set to help make our community beautiful. My office employees and I have called 911 to the extent now that we have been told not to call this line, but a different line, should someone be overdosing on our front sidewalk bench area.
Joanne?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but your time is, your 2 minutes is up.
Oh,
Yes.
shoot. Well,
Do
she
you want
does
to
have
leave the
that
letter?
here.
If you want to leave the letter with us,
Yeah,
that would be great.
okay, there's an
Thank you.
attachment on the back,
Okay.
and it is for a site, and she's got all the
And,
specs.
yeah, thank you. And tonight, we're not talking about a safe injection site, we're actually talking about the temporary use permit.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
Donovan Brown, yes, we have a rental property at 1100 Tamarack. I have a 2-page letter, it takes 4 minutes to read, we try to go fast.
Sorry, guys, we have a lot of.
I know,
people
2 minutes,
that wanna talk.
I gotta squeeze this into 2 minutes.
Okay,
I
2
understand.
minutes.
Okay, throughout this past year, I and many others, business professionals, concerned parents have been writing letters. You've been encouraged to watch 2 documentaries, Vancouver is Dying, Canada is Dying, both of which clearly expose the reality of the destruction to lives and communities and the dismal failure of the government to fix it. You've been faced with the facts that BC's current model of harm reduction and safe supply is a lie. There is nothing safe about highly addictive pharmaceutical drug therapies or severely destructive hard drugs like crystal meth, heroin, and cocaine, which are apparently going to be on site. Who knows? Those are, of course, our federal government deemed it wise to legalize these very dangerous substances that, let's be honest, none of us want in the hands of our children and loved ones. We've witnessed the ambulances and emergency service vehicles scream into town, and every time I hear a siren, I say to myself, there must be another house fire. No, it's another overdose. That is sad. Moving along. The proposed solution to our downtown woes is a 25-bed shelter close to the footbridge. Well, the last thing I want is for you to say, Trail, thanks for your letters, and then vote yes and permit the shelter anyways. What I expect is a rebuttal to those letters I sent you. I want you to prove me wrong and justify putting in this, I think it's a safe injection site. I want you to show me in which city or town in BC, Canada, or the US has had success or benefited from allowing these kind of things, safe injection sites, this model. How will Trail be any different from all the other drug terrorized communities we keep hearing about? If the site goes down there, are we gonna see the same sirens? Apparently not, because they'll have a boatload of.
Thank you, your time is
oxide.
up.
1:45.
Sorry, 2 minutes.
Please vote no.
15 seconds.
Thank you very much.
Point of order,
One
thank you.
second.
Thank you.
Just to remind everyone, we're here to talk about the temporary use permit. We're not talking about a safe injection site tonight.
That's what it will be.
It's the same.
That's
That's what we're-
that's what they're turning it into. That's what you guys are allowing it.
Okay,
Anyway,
so
my name's
housing.
My name is Bob Slidell, I live at 2097 Topping Street.
Point of
Excuse me?
order,
I
please.
live right at the top of the stairs at the bottom of Riverside Avenue. I have pets. We have small children playing there all the time. I'm concerned about our safety, obviously. I would like to know, has BC Housing considered the hospital parking lot as an alternative? Your facilities are already there. There's tons of space. You can go up there any time of the day. The parking lot is completely empty. Can we not put 5 ATCO trailers in the parking lot up there? And like your interior health facility is already there. It gets it out of the community. There's no elderly people living up there like that I know of. There's a high school close by, but there, you know, hopefully we can have a little bit of accountability with these people. And that's my next question. Like,
Once you select these 25 people, will there be some accountability? Are they allowed to go downtown, shoot up and just wander back to their bed? Or is there gonna be like some serious accountability that you need to stay clean and promote like being a member of our society, like all these people obviously are that are very concerned about this, that this is coming to our community just like everywhere in British Columbia. Like, where is the accountability for these 25 people selected? And I'm sorry, all of this for 7 more beds is like fucking beyond me. I'm sorry, guys, but this is craziness.
I said at the beginning of this.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's what. Where is the accountability, not only from BC Housing, but from the medical employees that will be working in this facility? Are we actually gonna work to help these people get clean and become members of our society? Or are we just gonna continue to enable them? Because
Sorry, I missed your name at the beginning.
my name's Todd Slydell, TODD-SLYDELL.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Okay.
sorry to interrupt, but your time is up. Do you actually have a question?
Yeah, I'm wondering,
Quickly.
once the 25 people have had their intake interview and they've been accepted in and given their bed, will there be any accountability for these people to get clean in order to keep that bed? No. Then we are doing it wrong.
My name is Margaret Sherwood. Okay, sorry, Margaret, before you get going, please, I just want to remind everybody that we're trying to have a respectful conversation here.
Hey, she lives on Riverside, so let her speak.
I'll be rude. I am going to let her speak.
Like,
I
we all-
want to make sure that people.
Like, you got your
understand.
2-minute thing, like, we have a lot of concerns.
I'm speaking. Go ahead, thank you.
Okay, my name is Margaret Sherwood, I live at 2080 Riverside Avenue. Fellow citizens, I first want to say that I would not be against supportive housing or treatment center in our area, but I am against a shelter that will be encouraging people to continue to use drugs. First, it does not fix the problem of homelessness in our community. All it does is put it out of sight, out of mind. Also, we do not know how temporary this temporary shelter will be. There seems to be no plans in place for a permanent shelter. There has been no consultation with the people of Riverside Avenue. People are being told that this is where the shelter is going before it has even been voted on. This is not how our system is supposed to work. Citizens are supposed to be consulted and input is supposed to be considered fairly. The following issues have not been addressed. The impact the increased police, fire, and ambulance attendance will have on the people of Riverside Avenue. Increased garbage, including biohazards, have not been adequately addressed in this proposal. The safety of residents has not been adequately addressed. Cameras are not a deterrent. They are only useful in trying to determine the identity of a perpetrator. The street is very narrow, 2 lanes, and the sidewalks are narrow as well. Who will be there to ensure the road and sidewalks are not full of debris? I have seen the alley where the shelter is now, and it is littered with garbage, stolen shopping carts, and people using drugs. There would have to be 24-hour staffed security that patrol the area to protect residents and property. I fail to see how making a park and walking bridge unusable by the majority of citizens is a reasonable use of our tax dollars. The walking bridge is an important part of trails infrastructure and is used by walkers, bikers, dog walkers, and many senior citizens. And is an important
Sorry,
part.
Margaret. Sorry, your time's up.
Okay.
Thank you. If you've heard it here stated tonight, I wonder if we could just bring some ideas, new information to the council, because a lot of what we're hearing tonight is we've already received in emails and letters and phone calls. Just to save people time here, please. Go ahead.
Hi,
Excellent.
1804, Gwendolyn, Vince.
Vince?
Nice to see you again, guys. Only one question for BC Housing, what's the screening? How do we select people considering there's admittance that there's less bed than what's needed? doing it, there's less bed than what needed, so what's the screening? How do you guys select those people?
How are you going to screen
Yeah,
the,
so I'll draw on Cheryl as well because she's part of operations, so she's more familiar with our screening process. Cheryl, did you hear?
Yeah, so for normally with shelters, we don't have a screening process. So shelters are for people who come who need a bed, and if there is a bed available, they get access to that bed. So the shelter services provider may have a very small application to get their information, but there's no actual screening process that we do in supportive housing.
Seth?
Thank you.
First come, first serve. Ish. Cool. Shout out to outreach workers and their workers.
Thank you.
My name is Mark Steves. I'm from 947 Spokane Street. Sorry, I'm having problems with talking because of my lungs, so I'm gonna pass these out.
Okay.
Okay,
Is this new information for us tonight?
It was an actual whole speech that I put online last night. I have one question to ask.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. We have a shelter right now that houses 18 beds. There's typically more than 18 people in there every day. That's here or there. This new shelter is gonna house 25 beds. We have 40 to 50 people homeless. It's been identified. What do the other people do? How is this gonna change our downtown core? How is it gonna make our businesses safe, our residents safe, our backyards safe? How is this gonna do any good at all? How is it gonna change anything? I don't see nothing changing. I'd like an answer.
Okay, so we've been working in many different municipalities with many different homeless population groups. And what we have found, and we have evidence based on this, that people need some form of housing in order to move their lives forward in a positive direction.
I agree.
And so that's really what this shelter is about. It's about providing a place for people to begin to work on their life issues and to move forward into more stable life condition and more stable housing. And I think that this shelter is only a stepping stone, and I've spoken to that end tonight as well. This is not the solution.
So we're putting this place up, we're devaluating people's properties for a stepping stone.
Yep.
That doesn't make sense to me at all. That's all I have to say.
Cheryl, I'm not sure if you have more to add to that.
Douglas, I think you touched on the point. I mean, like you said, the first place for people to start getting better is to know that they have a place to go and a place to stay. So this is the first step along the housing continuum, and like I said, we're going to work with the municipality to try and find more housing along that continuum.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Kim Benetton. I'm at 3961 Carnation Drive. I didn't prepare anything, I really wish that I did. I just want you to know that there are people that support this proposal, and I understand that there's concerns. And, there was a lot of concerns about the skate park. It did get built for generations, and it hasn't been a problem. Obviously, this is a really hot topic, and as a social worker in this community for 25 years, I've certainly seen a growing issue with homelessness. And I think that no matter where you propose to put this shelter, there's going to be opposition. And it's, nobody wants it in their backyard. And I think that it is well thought out, and I think that there's a lot, the homeless of this community deserve a better space than what they're in right now. And there's a perception of homelessness. I see a lot of homelessness in my work, and it's not just people with addictions. So people with addictions deserve a home just like anybody else. And not necessarily are they all ready for changes. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room with different addictions, and that does not mean that they don't deserve a roof over their head. I just think of what Mahatma Gandhi said, is that a true measure of society is how we treat our most vulnerable. And I understand that people are concerned, but I think that everyone deserves a roof over their head.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Darcy O'Hearn. I'm 245 Market Street. I am opposed to the idea for, the main reason is because I think we're reacting. I don't think that we are thinking this through. I don't think that the citizens of Trail are being heard. I don't think that the businesses that are being affected downtown are being heard. Building a suite with 25 people is not the answer. I do believe that there is a homeless problem, but building 25 beds, we are part of, I know this is gonna sound so insignificant, but why would you build that beautiful skywalk and then have it end up in that area? Like, why would you do that? And I don't think that we're utilizing our Riverside opportunities, and there's been a few people coming up with some ideas up at the hospital. I'm like, why are we not entertaining that idea? I am asking all of you, please do not vote yes tonight for the simple fact that we don't have a solution to this problem. Building 25 beds is not the solution. It's time to rip off the Band-Aid, stand up to not only our local governments, our provincial governments, and our federal government. This is a problem that does not like putting in 25 beds downtown Trail when my kid cannot go to McDonald's and get himself a basket of fries. My daughter cannot get gas at Esso.
Darcy, sorry.
2 minutes.
Thank
Hi, my name is Leanne Ellis. I live at 151 Spanish Road. My daughter Mila, who's 10, Nora, who's 8. I have 2 questions are, first of all, how Darcy just touched on it, the safety. My daughter's 10, and I don't allow her to walk from my car around the block to martial arts, because there's people around who walk through. The safety, like I'm from Fruitvale, born and raised, it's sad to not have my kids walking around downtown. I don't let them go to McDonald's. I did walk everywhere with them. I don't let them walk around downtown, which is so sad. I'm from here, I love this area, I have a business here, and to see it not thriving breaks my heart. And number 2, a good question for City of Trail, because obviously BC Housing, you guys have a plan and have nothing to back it up. So the question is for City of Trail, what's your plan to keep that area clean? My kids want to walk through Rotary Park. My kids want to walk on the skyline. We walk down there under the bridge, by the bridge, and there's needle paraphernalia everywhere. So what's the City of Trail plan and budget for keeping it clean and safe, so my kids don't end up on the streets as well, don't end up injured? So is there a budget? Is there a plan for keeping the city clean, that area clean, if it goes through? Yeah. Is there any plan for that from you, City of Trail? Thanks.
No? So I can tell you that based on what BC Housing is telling us, there will be more security down there, 24/7
Security cleanup crew. So there will be more garbage, there will be needles, there will be debris. We can see from the people, I don't think carry all their things in their carts, that there's garbage everywhere. So not about security, for garbage and keeping the area and streets clean, so my children don't get injured, and my children can play in the Rotary Park. The City of Trails poured money to make it beautiful, and the Skyline, the Sky Bridge to make it beautiful, the entire Esplanade that we worked so hard to make beautiful. Is there a plan from the City of Trails to keep it clean? Is there any budget? Is there any extra?
Now, my understanding, Dan, is that that is part of the, contract with the operators. They do that now. They clean up our city now. They clean up our community. We also have, sorry, point of order, please. My understanding is that they will continue to do that as part of their contract. I mean, I'm certain that if it does, I know that it's a concern. I have grandchildren myself, granddaughters that don't wanna walk downtown because they're worried as well. I mean, the only thing that I can tell you is that we have to increase our security, maybe our lighting. I mean, those kind of ideas will come when the operators are, you know, chosen. So I don't know if any of the councillors have anything to add to that, or even BC Housing.
Yeah, I would just, I'll add some thoughts, and maybe Cheryl can add some thoughts to that as well. But I would say that to do nothing for the area that requires what we feel is a greater building infrastructure in the area that support people that need this support. We feel like an operator, a strong operator who can provide services in collaboration with Interior Health will actually reduce the amount of paraphernalia around the area. And I think also that what we want to see is that people are not having, like without shelter, they have no place to store their things, they have no place to be with their things and with other people. So the idea of shopping carts and those things, really we're trying to provide that first step for people to actually have a house, a home, and a place where they can store their things, and it's orderly. And there's also a big effort within our shelters to be a good neighbor. And we understand that can be a hard concept for somebody who's struggling with mental health or addiction, but we feel like with the supports and with the staff that we see that happen.
Does that happen at other places? Then you've done a similar thing, that area has stayed clean, has stayed cleaner at other facilities, the same as the one we're doing here in Cassagar and Kelowna.
Yeah.
It's stayed
Yeah.
cleaner, there's been
Yeah.
less paraphernalia, there's been less needles.
Yes,
Is that statistic?
yes. So that's, and I'll have Cheryl speak to that.
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. So yes, we have seen an improvement in the neighborhood with other shelters. I mean, in Penticton and in West Kelowna and Kamloops, just to name a few. And this is another reason why BC Housing has decided to continue funding the 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. outreach workers that was previously funded by UBCM. So, and they will provide some of that support, and we'll be going around and collecting needles and garbage within the area that we determine that they're responsible for.
So if the area is dirty, will the city of Cheryl then budget that and clean that up? Keep that area clean and safe for our future?
Well, I think what Cheryl's saying as well is that we had a separate funding arm for outreach workers for our shelter that really did that full community engagement. And now we've taken that on because that gap as the funding has fell short there. And so we feel strongly, especially here, that we've heard a lot of concern from you folks around that really we need that a good boundary for that outreach community engagement support around the shelter.
Yeah,
So
that
that
whole
is
area is
our-
unusable.
Well, I think that's the thing right now. We know that there's encampments. I know from talking with RCMP Mike that he and Dan go around, and there's lots of garbage paraphernalia. It's a bad situation, and that's why we're trying to come in and provide something that's better. And we know it's not the final solution, and we have to understand that is a part of the larger housing piece in Trail. And we cannot take our foot off the gas with providing permanent supportive housing in the city of Trail. It's crucial, and we understand that. So do we do nothing here for, I know it's a small amount of beds, it's not sufficient. We would prefer to build, you know, a larger permanent building that's nice and has full facility, but we have to do something until we get to that place. We currently are trying to work with the city for a site that would be appropriate to build a permanent building. And until we get that, we need to do something.
A park and a bridge that the public uses is not the spot.
Hi there, I'm Leah Mason-Pope. I live at 4226 Casino Road. I'm also a service provider for people, vulnerable people working with horses up in Casino. I didn't prepare anything, so I hope I can cover it. We're a one road out, one road in, and we've had dangerous fires lit, 3 of them, temporary housing. It was on the side of the road going up to Casino, was lit on fire. Somebody else was unhomed on the riverbank, lit a fire. That exposes our entire 35 homes in Casino to vulnerable forest fires and ruins our entire community. The road is not satisfactory. We have 2 or 3 gravel service providers that live up Casino Road, or the dump trucks and things like that go down that road. The other day we were coming home from dinner and a lady was walking in front of us around the blind corner on the stones on our side of the road. It was dark, we didn't see her. We're commonly coming down from the Casino Road and having to go around onto the sidewalk. And then the other day, a fire truck was in the middle of the road on Bay Avenue. Imagine a fire truck right at the homeless shelter that impedes our ability to come up and down safely in our vehicles. It's only a 1.5 lane traffic at best in the summertime. The winter time, it is death defying. We hit those.
Sorry, your time's up.
Okay, so
Thank you.
please reconsider and vote no.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jamie Riker, 2032 Topping Street. He actually sold me my house. I just want to voice my concern about the location. BC Housing is giving a lot of non-answers. They're just saying we'll figure it out as we go. I don't think that's sufficient for the people that live in the area that are going to be affected entirely by this. I'm tired of picking up crack pipes, heroin needles, and dealing with people that are using meth near my house, down the stairway that's going to be at this new proposed location. I don't see any benefit for what it is. There needs to be a better solution, maybe further down the road. If it's just a 2-minute drive, that's gonna save a lot of people hazard stuff. I've had my car broken into multiple times. My house tried to get burgled, bunch of things. Nothing's been in there, but they just cause destruction in the area. And I think there just needs to be a better solution for that. And BC Housing is not doing anything. And I hope the city of Trail stands up for the residents and not just the few people that are gonna be into housing, but the actual people who live on the streets who are affected by this and are stuck with the situation.
And pay taxes.
Pay taxes, all this stuff, so I just wanted to.
Remember that
Mike, I live at 2240 Riverside, and just a quick thing to address this statement earlier about helping these people live and better on. I've grown up without a biological family my whole life. I lived on the street, I've lived in the bush, I've done what I needed to, okay? You're endorsing them into doing criminal activity, into doing drugs, and it's all at the taxpayer's dollar.
Amen.
You're putting everybody in the area in danger, including them, by building that shelter there. You have the old bridge there, they can go and jump off any fucking time. You're talking about fence. I said sorry, miss. I said sorry, miss. You talk about fencing and cameraing your area, okay? And securing and patrolling your little area. Okay, they can come out and steal anything from other people's properties, yards, run back there. We can't get in to see it, to stop them or chase them in. Because the gate closes behind them. You said earlier that nobody can get in there unless they're carded or unless they're permitted in there, okay?
Sorry.
So now you're endorsing
Sorry,
criminal
your
activity,
time's up.
and so is the government.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Melody and I live across the street from the shelter at 2070 Riverside Avenue. I had so many things to ask, but I'm just gonna ask one, and this is directed to BC Housing. Are you done designing your design yet?
We are not, this is the very first step.
Okay,
This is
so
the very
this-
first step.
Okay,
It's
so
a
this would be a
much
good time just to bring something up that I think is something, you know, you might wanna think about.
Yes.
The way the street is now and the fact that it's so narrow, if I'm a grandmother and I have my children, my grandchildren over, young grandchildren over all the time, that's my life. If I want to walk out with them, or I want to go to the gym, or I wanna walk downtown, because I live so close to downtown, my biggest concern is that with the sidewalk, with if the buildings come right up to the sidewalk, and often these clients are raging and yelling and angry, because a lot of them are, you know, on drugs. There's nowhere to go, where if I go downtown, I go to the library and I see somebody raging, I can say, okay, I'm gonna go to the other side of the street. I just want to know if you end up doing this, if you design this, could you please make sure that I can leave my home? That's all I just want to say.
Good evening, Mark McLaughlin, President and CEO of Kootenai Savings, representing our head office, our branch, and our operations in Trail. First off, I want to say how much I appreciate what you have to consider tonight. I recall many years ago as chair of First Calgary Savings, standing in front of City Council in the city of Calgary, talking about the development of a homeless center in downtown Calgary and the challenge around that and the complexity. Probably no other issue that you'll face that is more polarizing than this one from a community perspective. Obviously, for us as an organization, as a business, as a downtown business, we have an interest in what happens. We have an interest in council's decision. We certainly support doing something from obviously a temporary perspective, given the fact that there's nothing in play come end of September, it's necessary, but we need a long-term solution. And we need to be there as an organization. We will be there as an organization. We need to advance these conversations. We will bring resources to the table, financial, human, capital, intellectual capital, whatever is required to advance this forward. Obviously, this is a hot topic for your constituents. And one of the things that I take away from tonight is the concern around that long-term solution. Let's advance it. Let's advance it. Let's bring us to the table. Let us be a big part of this. Let us be a partner with you in coming up with those solutions sooner rather than later. But I appreciate the challenges that you have here. But do know Kootenai Savings is here as a partner and will play a significant role in many aspects to help find a solution for the people of Trail. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
What was your address as well?
Head office,
Oh, you live in the office?
Point of order, please. All right. Okay.
Hi, my name is Gerald Bernard, I live at 2106 Riverside. I've been a proud taxpayer at Trail for 20 years. Can I have my speech, please?
Yeah, point of order, please.
As I said, I've been a proud taxpayer at Trail for 20 years. I know there's a lot of history in this town. I'm very proud to be a member of this community. With you, I'm gonna stress, it's pretty obvious there's bureaucracy and there's democracy. They're not the same thing. He's bureaucracy. You guys are putting something down our throat, and you know exactly what's gonna happen. We all do, we're not idiots. You know what's gonna happen. So I'm asking democracy. I don't have to ask these people to show the pads. I can do a vote right now. It's gonna be obvious. You guys know who pays you guys. You work for us. Don't lose sight of that. You're there to represent us. We're your constituents. This should all be going to a vote. We never had any kind of input on our community. There's some really good ideas that came forth from some gentlemen. Why wasn't that ever thought about? Why are we jumping down this inadequate place to put this temporary thing, saying temporary, but we all know it's gonna go on and on and on. We all know that it's enabling and attracting. It's not fixing, it's not helping anybody, including the people that are gonna be housed there.
Okay, so.
That's all I have to say.
Your time's up. Thank you.
Bill Van Beek, 24 Hazelwood Drive and Trail. I'm speaking here as the acting chair of the Supportive Housing Working Group here in Trail. You have my submission already, and when I look at it, you know, there's a lot of concern about where the place is going. My big concern is, what are we going to do in the interim? We have a problem today. We have a solution we've got to come up with. They're asking for temporary. We've looked at it 3 different ways. There's nothing that comes up that everyone's happy with. We need a solution. We got to provide something. If we don't have a shelter for these people, they're going to be on the street. So you think you've got a problem now, they're going to be all over the place.
Yes.
It's just going to make matters worse. Here you have an opportunity for people to get some housing, get to the next stage, and to get into a better position. Again, this is not the solution. We're here to see supportive housing. That's our real goal. This is not the solution. We need that supportive housing unit. Been working on it for 4 years, and we're still working on it hard, and I know there's many different inputs. So that's really what we need, but we need an interim solution as well. And if there's a better one out there, let's hear it. Nobody's come up with it. They found a solution not in the backyard, but what's a better solution? We haven't seen it.
My name is Tammy McLean. I'm at 1301 Davis Street in Rossland.
Little louder, please.
Tammy McLean, 1301 Davis Street in Rossland. I've been a nurse and a nurse practitioner in this community for 28 years. And my last 5 years have been working with people with substance use and poverty and homelessness and trauma. And to be unhoused, it's untenable. I had a young gentleman, I will not mention his name, but I asked him, you know, why do you do substances? Like, why? What's going on? And I didn't get into the background as to, you know, what had happened. But he said, Tammy, I'm living in a sleeping bag underneath the bridge. At least I'm not cold when I'm high. When it's 28 degrees in Trail, minus 28 degrees in Trail, in the middle of winter, we get to go home to a roof over our heads and hopefully some comfort and family that care for us. And many of the people that are living at the shelter barely have that. If we close, and my question is, the current shelter closes on what date? And what happens after that date if we do not approve this? So that people are not living in the rough. There's no hope in hell, pardon my language, of people getting well if they do not have shelter. It's temporary, I hear that. I am 100% in support of, you know, council and the city and the community coming together to look at permanent supportive housing here in Trail, which is sorely needed. But as a temporary step, we have to do something or people will die, and they have, and they will continue to do in much greater numbers. And so my question is, when does the current shelter close?
Thank you, Tammy. I'll get Douglas to answer.
I believe it's the end of September is the end of our temporary use permit there.
Okay. And so I urge council, if that is the case, to grant an extension for the current shelter until we can look at what is before us as another temporary measure while we build housing that is supportive of people's long-term health. And I thank you for your difficult decisions.
Diane Wong, 201 Diana Crescent in Trail.
I'm gonna keep this to 2 minutes. I want to share that I fully support a safe place for society's most vulnerable in Trail, but new management. More times than not, these people were abused, neglected, victimized in their early development years. They do not know how to communicate in a way to get the help that they need or to connect with the right people. Often they have fallen through the cracks of our governing systems. Other times, these people have suddenly been challenged by unavoidable life events. After several years of operating the Trails Shelter, I feel that the current management has had the opportunity with public funds to actually help influence lives. But from my brother's personal account, in the few winter months he spent there, they actually helped dig a deeper hole for him. They have discouraged him from reporting physical attacks to law enforcement and made him feel like he is deserving of the abuse. He does say that most workers there were very caring and supportive, but there are the 5% were horrible leaders and support workers. They would actually create trouble for him by making up lies and labeling him with no validity. They play favorites among clients and have certain rules for some, but not others. They won't even provide.
Sorry, Dan, I know this is really, really important to you, but we're not talking about the operators.
Oh,
I understand how important it is to you, Dan, but we have to get this on track so that we can.
And you know what? That was my point.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask for a new operator.
Thank you.
I'm Carol Siegel. I actually don't live in this area. I live in 4721 Erie Rossborough, the Rossborough Meadows area. We used to live in a democratic society. We wanted to have lives better for our kids. I'm going to ask the question at the end. Life has got worse. In the 6-7 years I've been in the Kootenays, this place has gone to the dumps. I come here because I need services, and this is a reasonable town closest to me to come to that. I used to be in Selma. What concerns me is we have an officer of the police here who are actually enabling the situation. It's illegal to sell unpasteurized milk in this country at the moment, but you can walk around with crack cocaine and they know who supplies it. They'll do nothing about it.
Yes.
So this problem starts here. The second problem is you need to offer services to help these people. This type of shelter will not set, and you maybe could correct me, but name a single individual who has actually got help in one of those shelters, in one of those places. This council has to decide no on this, because this is it used to be democracy, now they call it NIMBY, because nobody wants it in their backyard. The people who are advocating for this, there are more than 25 of them in Trail. Let them each adopt one of these individuals into their home. Thank you very much. And when would you supply services, not a home? They all need own homes. They need to own the homes. They need services. When will you supply services, not a place to shelter?
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
My name is Lisbeth Goris. I live in 1389 Lookout Street. As you can tell from my accent, I wasn't born and raised in Trail, but I lived here the last 5 years. I lived in Amsterdam in the 80s when we had the big heroin crisis and we had to step over the junkies and in order to get into university. And I see some stuff happening here now, but that is not my question. I do a little bit of math because I am a school teacher in the Netherlands. You have roughly 45 homeless people, 25 will be possibly in that temporary facility. What can Trail do to make Castlegar have the other 20? Because the solution that you're offering is not cleaning our streets, is not getting rid of the shopping carts. It's a half measure for only half the people. And I so agree with the very, very first speaker who asked for help in the direction of getting them off the substance, because this is really weird to me here in Canada. Sometimes I heard CBC for 2 hours on housing, but what they're actually talking about is addiction. It isn't housing at all. We rent places, we have to evict people because we trash them because they're on the drugs. So call things by their name, please.
Thank you.
My name is Jill Lowe. I live at 2100 Riverside Avenue, and it's pretty much gonna be right across the street from my house. As one of the other speakers said, that road is an absolute disaster. But I'm not against housing anybody. I have quite a few family members that are drug and addicted alcoholics, and I totally get they need a roof over their head. There's so many family members in that have kicked them to the side because they have used their family members by telling lies, and I won't go there anyways. But that road is an absolute disaster. We have them living underneath the old Trail Bridge. There was thieving. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And I'm afraid of what's gonna happen to that park down there. Because if there's only 25 beds, and there's how many homeless?
70.
There's 70. Where are the other ones gonna go? Are they gonna stay downtown? Or are they gonna hang out outside the shelter near that road? We have the logging trucks, which haven't come back yet. They will be coming back soon. That corner is treacherous, it's dangerous. You can't walk along on that sidewalk because it's like this. It's terrible to walk your pets along because already a lot of the homeless are living on the river. They leave their paraphernalia everywhere.
Thank you,
I don't want,
Jen. I'm sorry,
but I'm a taxpayer. I should be able to have longer than 2
I know,
minutes.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm
but we
paying
did
for
get
these
your
guys in
emails.
shelter.
We did get your emails and your messages too. They are in the package.
Also,
Thank
you guys don't have to live down there, the ones that are wanting to
Thank
house
you,
them down there.
Deanna Stevens, 1320 McLean Street. How much was the Skywalk Bridge to build? Anybody know?
No.
Jill, how many million?
Are we talking about the temporary use?
I'm asking a question of my council that I pay taxes to.
Counselor Butler, do you remember the price of the walking bridge?
Wasn't it 29 million?
I think the plaque says 17.
17?
I think the plaque says 17.
Now we have seniors housing on the other side in East Trail. We have Parkside, we have Chateau Manor, and we have Silver City Gardens. Those people frequent that bridge, but only halfway because they're scared to come into the downtown. Now we're gonna make it worse. So you've wasted $17 million on a walking bridge that no one is going to use if you vote for this proposal. You, sir, belong in Hollywood for your performance earlier. Now, the drugs are the problem. I am in order. Thank you very much as a taxpayer. Yeah, I am. I've given him an option for a new career. So, we have all these euphemisms here. We should have George Carlin in the room giving a comedic speech for the unhoused. We have too much problem with drugs. You know the supplying drugs. We have 3 entrances into this city. Why do we not have roadblocks stopping the drugs coming into this city? Why? No, why? Tell me why. Why do we have the drugs? We don't need them. Okay, no, we don't.
Okay. So is there anybody that has any new information? I think we're.
Referendum.
Yes.
We need a referendum.
Point of order, please.
We need a vote.
I just have something positive to say. So I support this proposal and just want to say that these human beings deserve to be treated with some dignity, and that if you didn't have a roof over your head or a safe bed to lay in at night or a place to shower, that maybe perhaps, or if you were getting raped every night or beaten to a pulp, that you might be wanting to do some drugs as well. So if you didn't have these places to go, maybe you wouldn't want to have to do drugs because you would want to feel some sort of hope if you didn't have these services. So I support this. Thank you.
Sorry, I missed your name.
Kendra Lathway, I live at 10019.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One last comment?
No.
Anyone?
I asked for people that wrote submissions. I gave you an opportunity to speak, and I think it's time now that we're gonna move on. Thank you, Donovan.
Bill Smith, 2240 Riverside Avenue, Councilman, Mayor. I said what I wanted to say in the last meeting that was here, so we're not going to go with that. All I want to say is that I think that we need to explore more options, okay? And I do agree that, like I'm concerned lots for the homeless people downtown at night, and the ones I talk to and stuff like that. And I ask those questions to why they do their addictions and stuff like that. And that's basically what I have in my mind. And in last week's meeting, if I said anything offensive in my report, I apologize. Apologize.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Audrey Dern, and I live at 1637 Columbia Avenue. First off, I'd like to thank council and mayor for all the work you've done, and LCCDTS Housing. Jan, I know you've been working tirelessly on this for years, and the CDS staff are doing the best stuff they can in the shelter. I'm here to ask council to reject this proposal from BC Housing and to continue to work to find a solution that's good for all of the citizens. Trail is our home, we have businesses, the business community is thrashed. Everybody's insurance has gone up, customers won't come down, you don't need to hear all of that, but I'm wanting to invest in stabilizing addiction treatment and getting housing. Treatment first. I mean, not many of us haven't been touched by addiction in our family. Not many of us haven't even gone to counseling to know that we don't enable. We need to find treatment first and then housing. And BC Housing, I know your heart's in the right place, but let's get Interior Health on board. That's the missing piece. Like they're the ones that can provide the treatment. So I'm here to ask the leadership to help, to step up for the citizens, for the business people, and find a solution that works for everybody, and to vote no, please, thank you.
Hi, I'm Karen Goodison. I live in Rossland. I have training as a public health and preventive medicine physician, which means that my job is to help look after populations of people. I've heard a lot of discussion tonight, and I know we're in a challenging time, but intersecting housing emergency, mental health emergency, and really a true public health emergency around the toxic drug supply. A lot of the behavior that people are talking about is related to toxic drugs that are on the street right now. And I think we need to remember that this is about housing, and that housing is actually a really important and essential component to our health. So the Health Officers Council, which is a group of physicians such as myself from across BC, have actually written a position paper on homelessness, equity, and health that should be public very soon. I have a draft here if anyone would like to see it. But the principles are really that housing is a prerequisite for health. People with substance use disorders cannot treat their substance use disorder without a house over their head, a shower, clothes, and food. Housing is a determinant of health, and it is a human right. Homelessness is a public health issue, and we have a homelessness crisis currently in BC. This crisis of homelessness is also a health crisis, and so it's very complex. Homelessness has an inequitable impact on people who are at risk of disease, and preventing and mitigating the impacts of homelessness is a shared responsibility across sectors. We need all sectors and the folks that are here to support housing to help people get on their feet. Yes. This requires societal prioritization and intention. I truly believe that the city of Trail would also like to see other forms of housing available, and this is a first step in the right direction. I really support that upstream and investment in homelessness prevention initiatives are crucial, and that we should support the action put forward today.
My name is Paul Evans, I'm from 2106 Leroy Avenue in Roseland. I just want to put forward a possible solution to this because everyone's talking about NIMBY and they're also talking about kind of relevance of things that in part they're right, but in the whole they're obviously kind of still kind of causing difficulty with people actually finding a solution. What's the solution? Well, kind of we've got this or we've got that. The truth of the matter is most of the most successful facilities that kind of deal with this sort of thing kind of usually revolve around something like a farm or kind of somewhere where you actually give these people purpose and work as well as treatment. And the crazy thing about that, it's usually remote because it gets them away from the drug and the drug problem and the people that are bringing the drugs into town. You can actually have your facilities, your kind of your support networks and everything around it. And because they're slightly remote of the town, they get to work as a community within themselves and they get to actually kind of work it out for themselves. So everyone here has got reasonable points, except for the fact that kind of everyone's going, it's all about housing. Well, it's not. It's a combination of kind of fixing the problem, solving their addiction, giving them purpose, giving them reason for being on this planet, and more to the point, you know, then putting a roof over their head. You're treating them as kind of humans as a whole, as part of a community, not just as things that are on the street. So even though kind of BC Housing has addressed this in part, I really do believe that kind of you actually should be doing a damn sight more engagement with the people in the areas and kind of give your consultants a bit of a rest or kind of get them to find new jobs. Because I can tell you now, how many consultants does it take to come to a conclusion? And the answer to that is zero. Anyway, look, sorry for that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, time's up. Thank you. For the speakers, we will move on to item number.
I didn't get to speak for myself, remember? I was speaking for Tawny. I just wanted to ask, or just not ask, but I just wanted to say, I learned that CDS is putting on their website, they're welcoming people, they're asking people to come to our town.
Yes.
Oh, I've seen that it's, if you're homeless or you will be homeless, come to Trail. You can look it up, we'll look it up.
Fetch.ca.
Sorry.
So I'm just saying, for our situation here.
Can I get you to state your name again,
Oh,
please?
of course,
Yeah.
Joanne Brown.
Thank you.
1100 towns, and I'm not against, I understand that people need housing, I agree. But I'm saying, why advertise and have more people come? Is everybody aware of that?
I don't know, Joanne, I haven't been made aware of that. I don't know if anybody else has that, so.
Is it true, am I wrong? Like, anybody here, no?
So point of order, we're not here to talk about the operators though. I just talk about the temporary use permit.
But if we're having, we don't have enough beds.
Thanks, Joanne.
Right?
Hi, my name's Tyler Wallstead, 4219 Casino Road. I'm not sure if you guys know, last year we had a big cleanup on Casino Road. There was needles, drugs, and that's when the shelter is further away. These substances were found like only hundreds of yards from where we hang out with our families and our kids, go to the beach all the time, and we're picking up needles. There was a big jug of brake clean, and it was laid over in the creek, dumped into the river. I'd like to know what kind of environmental impact the shelter would be having right on the river. 8-8 support, I keep hearing that number. What about the bus when it comes down the road at 7:30 with all our kids? We got these zombies on the road on drugs, and like, who's gonna deal with that? 8-8, what about 4-8? What about 4-H?
There's 24/7 staffing.
They're gonna be
inside.
cleaning up the road before the kids are coming down on the bus?
There is cleanup all around the shelter area. So as far as the boundary, that hasn't been determined. So that's something we have to.
Because we were taking that into our own hands, cleaning it up. So I wanna know now if this is closer to our homes, are we still gonna be having to do that cleanup?
Right.
Dump trailers, I'm talking trucks and dump trailers full of stuff. Daily Pavilion, we know every once in a while, somebody will get on the Daily Pavilion and they'll go to the trail bridge and jump off. That shelter, there's a bridge on both sides. How dangerous is that? We have these unstable people and then you wanna put them right there, like, it's a loaded gun. And yeah, just unstable residents, I don't know, I encourage you guys to vote no. Keep our families safe, to keep the residents safe, to keep my kids safe. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Mary Fisher, I live at 211 Ritchie Avenue Trail. I'd like to ask BC Housing, since Riverview was closed, how many years ago, 20 years ago? What availability is there for our vulnerable and homeless people? Why can't we make a temporary solution and house people there? I know it's out of the community, but it's temporary. You're big on temporary. Until we can get appropriate housing with services that can help our most vulnerable. Because housing isn't the only solution needed. We need a whole array of services. So why can we not, in BC, when we have a facility, a big facility that used to house challenged individuals, why cannot we reopen it? Question.
I can't speak to that at this point. That's outside of my area, but I'll see if Cheryl can speak to that as well, the Riverview.
Because really, big facility.
Yeah, so unfortunately, we can't speak to that because that's not within our authority to talk about, or do I have any details about this?
Maybe we should find out some details about it, because it's a big building sitting there, and there's a lot of professionals that could help the individuals if they were there.
I think,
temporarily.
Yeah, I think the issue though is this is the community, and we have many communities dealing with this same issue.
It's temporary thing. So when we have a full service facility built here, then people can come back and can access all the services that are needed. Because right now, it's destroying the fabric of our community. And Riverside is a neighborhood. And I ask all of our counselors here, everybody here, does it work well in your community? Would you like a shelter that you're proposing in your community? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that we've heard just about everything that we have to, is there one more speaker and then we're going to move on?
Okay, my name is Rosalie Howard. I live on 1472 Green Avenue Lane. I have lived in Trail for past 8 years. It's a lovely place. I adore it. I think it's just a beautiful place. Simply put, the missing component in all this, I've heard all the concerns about how to look after people who have addictions, and this is very real. I can understand that. My first job as a teenager was working in the Brandon Mental Hospital in Brandon, Manitoba. I understand. Okay, but the missing component here is the protection of the community while this is going on. And this is also paramount. And I beg of you to please take another look at your program and make sure that the people who have lived in those neighborhoods for years feel comfortable living there. Please. Amen. Thank you.
We do have a participant online that is waiting very patiently to speak to council and the rest of the community here. So we're going to give him an opportunity. You're just able to bring him in right now. I know I closed the meeting down, but I'm going to actually allow him to speak because he has been waiting in the background. So it's Justin. Justin, if you want to go ahead when you can.
Turn your mic on.
Oh, we can't hear you, Justin.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. I don't think people here are testing the need for a shelter. I think some more thought needs to go into the logistics surrounding this shelter. This blind corner, the gravel trucks, the snowplow trucks, that's where all the trail snow goes. Logging trucks, it's a skinny road. We're opening ourselves up for a lot of potential people to get hurt. Obviously, if there is going to be some first responders, access and egress. I'm sorry, I live in 4185 Casino Road. I'm concerned about the access egress for emergencies for my own family. I have a young family. My kids go to a lot of the same schools as your guys' kids. I'm asking you guys to please vote no until there's a plan in place for a lot of the safety mitigation for both the residents and the tenants. I'm not contesting that that a homeless shelter is not needed. It's the logistics around that area right there are making it extra complicated. It's a skinny road, bumpy. I know there was a lot said about the safety of the tenants. There needs to be some guarantees for some of the residents. And I think that putting this off and making a bit of a plan, would help a lot and would make people feel a lot better. There was a consideration from the one fellow, but there was no guarantees. All I'm at for is just some more thought to go into this around the logistics, and maybe so much thought has gone into the actual facility, nothing around it about the logistics of what's happening. I mean, there needs to be a policy in place for if people are hanging out on the road. I realize there's going to be security there in the facility, but if somebody is on the road, they're hanging out or whichever, that's where the danger is, and that's right beside them. So I'm hoping that some more thought can go into the logistics of this area. And I'm not contesting the need for a shelter. The location is just not ideal, and I think we're putting more people at risk. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, so we're going to move on. I'm going to hand this part of the meeting over to CAO clerk to present the temporary use permit application.
Okay, council, so we have gone through the process of hearing from the delegation of BC Housing. I know that council has received in their package information written down and comments, and there was a compilation as well that came from BC Housing in order to sort of make sure that they try as best as possible to answer the questions that they could that were submitted, and the council has read through that. Tonight we are looking for, we have a number of resolutions. One would be for tonight would be the starting point. BC Housing is not going to move any further on anything if they do not find out if they've got proper zoning. So that's where we're at today. And as the mayor kind of alluded many times, we're here to talk about the temporary use permit. So that temporary use permit would be for 3 years. Now again, a temporary use permit is allowed for a 3-year term as a max. And you can have an extension after that for one more 3 years. So in theory, any temporary use permit could be for a maximum of 6. Right now, what council is being asked to look at is only the first. We certainly are hoping, and working with BC Housing, that we will find a permanent structure to be able to put in supportive housing. We certainly believe supportive housing is a key. We don't believe that we will likely always need a shelter, but can be combined. Those are all questions that we will have to continue to look on in the future. I know council's been addressed the BC Housing that at many times before already. We are here at this stage. Part of the factor is that we had an area that Roslyn that was turned down. So BC Housing turned to other locations and circled back on one that they in the past felt was not going to qualify. And they've done some just additional due diligence engineering. They've done digging for geotech, and that's why this is coming for council today. We've been able to get approval of principle based on, when I say that approval of principle, from the funding source from BC Housing itself to move this project forward if it is successful in getting a rezone here through temporary use permit. A couple of other things that would be part of this particular report would be that we would also need council's permission. There's 2 other resolutions that come with the first one that obviously if council does not move forward or approve the first step in the temporary use permit, the other 2 become unnecessary. The second one of these 2 is that we would ask that council give permission to staff to work into a nominal lease for the property itself. And the other one is a unique, but kind of was addressed here a bit, is that if we are to get approval for the temporary use permit, it's going to take some time. And when we have that time, as Mr. Witcher talked about, looking at November, December, January, that time frame. Obviously, the current shelter is September 30th, their temporary use permit is here. There is no extensions available by council, that has been exhausted. It was a 1-year temporary use permit, and then another 1 year provided for, and that ends up on September 30th, 2023. What can happen, and is for the city to request, because the province does have power, ministerial paramountcy, and or a statutory immunity where they have the right as that larger government to overrule what a zoning is in place in a municipality. They don't ever really ever want to use it. In fact, it's very rare. But what does happen sometimes is in a window like this, when you're looking for 2 or 3 months extension of what you have, that you can as a municipality add on to the use permit, but you can ask them to have the authority, use their authority, so it's more of a request of the province to use their ministerial paramountcy to allow us that window to keep the current shelter over while this one is up and ready for operations. So there's a couple of different resolutions that are before you today. I certainly know that you've been here before, in a sense. You've been able to be involved in this one as we move through the different checkpoints, and this is a starting point. To be clear, once this happens, then some of the other components of like, okay, yes, now we're moving forward, what is the design, some of the security questions, there's other operational items that will get initiated with BC Housing and that council will have their authority on. As noted, we have a building permit, development permit that also allows for council's input, in addition to the fact that because of the size of the lot, there's also setbacks, so likely a variance coming as well to be able to fit the particular housing module on the land and to be able to provide enough space for parking and green space that they're looking. At this point in time, Your Worship, we would be at a stage where, unless there are any more questions from council, that we would be looking for someone to approve the motions.
Okay, is there any questions from council about the recommendation before you?
I have a question.
Councilman.
Logistically, Douglas, when you guys are looking at your development permit, which will come to us for approval, could that encompass that stretch of sidewalk area, as it will be the access and driveway, to have that section in front of that actually curbed properly to allow for safe transport along that passageway.
Yeah, I think that could be part of the consideration for the development permit. I think given all the comments that have been spoken about here tonight, that it would be prudent of us to ensure that that was adequately addressed. So for sure, I think that would be part of our solution.
Thank you.
Okay, so what we'll do is move the recommendation, and then I would like to make an amendment to the recommendation. So all those in favor, I'll read out the recommendation. The recommendation is that council, taking into account public input received, consider authorizing the issuance of a temporary use permit to allow the construction of a modular emergency homeless shelter on the city and Crown-owned properties at 2039 Riverside Avenue and vicinity for a 3-year term, and that if issued, the temporary use permit take effect, the effective date upon occupancy of the building being approved as part of the building permit process, or within 6 months of the date of issuance of the permit, whichever occurs first, and that if issued, the temporary use permit expires 3 years from the effective date. So can I have someone make that recommendation, please?
I'd like to make that motion, but with friendly amendment.
Councilor Butler?
I would, the friendly amendment.
Sorry, I'm sorry, Father Councilor.
Sorry, Captain. The friendly amendment would be to shorten the length of the TUP to 1 year. You've explained to us tonight that the new zoning will take, it would take in from when the actual facility is up and running. So really, in reality, 1 year will be 18 to 2 years. I do not want this to be a legacy project for the next council. We've been working on this for the last 5 years. And if we do an extension for 3 years, that will put us right into this cycle of the next municipal election. And that's a legacy that I'm not prepared to leave the new council with. And I think it's quite unfortunate that this council actually had to come into the situation as it did. So I hope I have the support of the second councillor.
I'll second that. Councilor Wilson, okay.
To shorten it from the start date of the, not tonight, obviously, but from this date of the opening of the facility.
Just for clarification, Councilor, so your amendment is that when occupancy, occupancy, and how long of a time frame from there?
1 year. So basically what we're still doing is working on this file continuously from tonight onward. To quote Douglas, you know, we can't take our foot off the gas. And this is a temporary. This is for ad hoc trailers. We're not building a structure here. So I really don't want to. I really feel strongly that we do need a place for our most vulnerable citizens to go to. This is the right answer. Everyone else say no, but it's something that we need to do. I feel so, but I think giving it a 3 year is just too much. We do have the option after 1 year to renew that again. So there's a 3 year option. I think it's also quite important that the audience here tonight knows that what we'll also be doing as part of this recommendation is the ministerial paramount, which is basically ceding our city rights to the provincial government to overrule, which they can do. So to keep that, so we are no longer able to keep our shelter going after this 29th of September without BC Housing and the ministry basically saying we have to. It's something that hasn't been used historically, or it's been used in very, very difficult times. Is it something I'm proud of? No, but this is where we are tonight. So thank you to both Councillor Wilson and Councillor Dunphy for supporting this.
And if I may, I just wonder if 1 year really may put you guys in a pinch and whether or not you want to.
Well, there would be the 3 years out.
That's right.
So this is also, I feel, alleviating some of the concerns from people here tonight, because theoretically you have a temporary shelter there for 7 years. 3, and 1.
Okay, so
May I speak?
we have a seconder.
May I speak to it?
Oh, sorry. Okay, yes.
Okay. You know, this has been, I want to thank everybody for being here with us tonight and sharing their perspectives. And, you know, some about situations that are brought beyond our control as a city, and some about the location of the temporary use permit and how it affects them. I also want to thank BC Housing and Douglas and Cheryl and their group for doing a much better job of the community engagement compared to the last temporary use permit that was presented in February. I also want to thank them for listening to our citizens and putting an RFP out for options for an operator, because that is a lot of concerns I feel in our community. Like the last time, this has been really hard for me personally, because I like to problem solve and find solutions that make everybody happy. But unfortunately, no matter where the shelter goes, not everybody's going to be happy. But the only reason why we are here is because BC Housing had to apply for a temporary use permit, because our current OCP does not have anything about shelters in it, because our OCP is 20 years old. 20 years ago, rents were cheap. 20 years ago, there weren't as many people living in our community. 20 years ago, there was enough housing for everyone. And 20 years ago, there were different street drugs. And 20 years ago, everything was different. We need to realize that things have changed. And regardless of people's opinions, every human being has a right to shelter. It is in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and not having a shelter is not an option, because the alternative legally is not being able to move people along, because you cannot stop them from sheltering. There is proven case law in civil cases. I can tell you that the city and BC Housing has looked at every option. Further away from downtown, trying to get transportation figured out, other private sector properties. I have reviewed land the city owns. I have sent BC Housing every potential property that has come available since February. And we have challenged our community to come up with suggestions and other alternatives. And this site was one that was most recommended by the community. The most reasonable site based on timing, based on proximity to downtown, without being downtown. I have toured other housing sites. I have met with other homeless shelter operators, and I have gained a deeper understanding of how these individuals have come to be where they are. Not everyone is a drug addict in that shelter. And yes, there are some for sure. And yes, I agree, we need rehab facilities more than anything else in our country right now. But this is something not just our country, or not our city is facing. Our country is facing the same situation. But our job around this council table, we are to provide services. We are to provide flushing toilets and sewers that work. We are to provide clean drinking water. We are to provide parks and recreation. We are not here to make legislative changes. We are not here to change what health mandates are. We are not here to change the criminal code of Canada. But our job is to lobby for those things. And we will and have been doing so and will continue to do so. When we meet with the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, when we meet with the Minister of Public Safety, the Minister of Health, E-Division of the RCMP in September, this is not a simple fix. And if homelessness was to be solved, it would have been done already. So now more than ever, we need to have humanity, and we need to help those that need it. So I will 100% support that location at this time with that.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak to the amendment? Okay.
So first off, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know it takes a lot of courage to get up and speak in front of a crowd. And your feelings are valid, everyone's feelings in this room are valid. I also wanna thank the numerous people that emailed us support for this site that aren't here tonight. And just know that just because you're not in this room, we've still taken what you said into consideration. I wanna preface my decision on this amended resolution by just the following. I have never been homeless, nor have I struggled with addiction. And I also don't live on Riverside Avenue, nor do I work downtown. So I have to rely on the experts factually and realistically to inform this decision, and that's what I've done. And right now, because compared to other communities of our size, we're getting a lot of attention and staff resource time from BC Housing. We, myself included, voted no to a location in the Gulch 6 months ago, and we rallied as a council to pressure BC Housing to come back to the table with a location identified that met our requirements. And the timeline on this was unprecedented, and they met our deadline. The debate from emails I've received it's turned towards more the philosophy of whether a shelter should be in trail or not. And this is not a topic that I'm morally prepared to discuss here. As Councillor Hanson said, we are here to vote on a temporary use permit for this temporary shelter. And I thank Councillor Butler for, I know what the word temporary puts in. I do safety tours and I see that temporary extension cord plugged in, and I know that it's been there for 3 years. So I know that the word temporary does not mean temporary, and I also believe in this council that we can work with BC Housing and get a permanent solution. I truly believe in us. In my opinion, the current shelter is not appropriate, it's too small, it's in the heart of our downtown, and due to the size, the operational policies require guests to leave during the day. This has increased drug use on our streets along with the decriminalization, loitering, sleeping, and in some cases, criminal activity. We need to move the shelter to a place that allows guests security, safety, and dignity. And I want to thank people that brought up the safety issues about that road. And I really hope that during the development permit, I know that's something that we're all going to be looking at if this goes through. This temporary permit will allow us to review bylaws that citizens continue to come to us with, wanting us to, how can we move people along? How can we limit public drug use? And without a shelter in place, our hands are really tied. I agree, this isn't the solution, but this is one stepping stone. I really do believe that. We're gonna be in a lot of talks with you if this goes through, and I'm also gonna be really pressuring council to reach out to our region. These citizens are not just from Trail. We have Rosslyn people, we have Warfield people, we have Trudeau people. One thing I'm missing here is I don't hear anything from our neighbors supporting us. So I agreed, I will also be voting for this, and we have a lot of work to do.
There's another, that's what I brought to you, but I wasn't allowed to read. There's another location.
Okay, thank you.
Proposed.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. Thank you, Councillor Butler, for the amendment. I like the 1 year piece. There's many pieces to this puzzle, and we've talked about them all tonight. Let's acknowledge the fact that most of our residents that will be staying at this shelter are people addicted to drugs. I will personally say on the record that I believe that even though you are a person addicted to drugs, you are still entitled to a roof over your head. I got 9.5 years recovery. I wasn't going to get into this, but we're talking personal stuff. In sobriety, I can tell you when I was a drunk, I had a lazy boy that I could pass out on in my home. These people don't have that luxury. They are addicted. It's a medical condition. It needs to be recognized as such. And I support the move, but there's two missing pieces, and we've talked about this tonight, but I just want to address it. One is treatment, and this come up from the conversations here tonight. To me, it's inhumane. It's just completely appalling that throughout the entire province, we don't have treatment centers. In the entire West Kootenay, there is no treatment center. Now that's something that has to be addressed, not by city council per se, but we can lobby for it and advocate for it. But the Ministry of Mental Health and Addictions and Interior Health need to address this unacceptable gap in service. The other thing that's missing, and again, I'm repeating stuff that's been said here tonight by Douglas and Cheryl and my council colleagues and Mayor Jones, is the housing gap. without housing, if you get someone into treatment, and let's say they're fortunate enough to get into healthy recovery, they still have to circle back to a home. Without a home, they end up back on the streets, where what's going to end up happening? Statistics will tell you the chances of relapse are almost inevitable. So we need housing. So I'm going to ask and beg Bill and his supportive housing group, Councillor Hanson is now on that group, which I'm very happy to say that she's on that group, to lobby harder, work harder, come to council, get us involved. We need to find a spot for supportive housing. 4 years, we've been circling around this site. We need to land on something. We need to dial up the focus. Jan Morton, I appreciate you being here and your comments, the support of the Lower Columbia Affordable Housing Society. If we're going to make application to get affordable housing in Trail, which we desperately need affordable housing. In fact, we need housing in all spectrums, market housing, senior housing. We need it all. We need to rely on our nonprofits to really dial in and get the grant money and get the funding that's out there. And I want to work with those agencies and those nonprofits, and I know my council colleagues and city staff and Mayor Jones will as well. We have work to do. Mayor Jones, my council colleagues and city staff too, and as I think was Constable, I knew I'd do it. Councillor Hanson alluded to, Councillor Benson, a OCP, an official community plan that is encouraging and inviting for investment and development that will bring market housing to Trail. We need to get that on the books as quickly as we can. So we all have work to do. Everybody in this room has work to do, and if we work together, we can make things happen. There's much to be done, but just because we don't have the two missing pieces, and for me, the biggest ones are treatment, lack of treatment, and lack of housing, doesn't mean that we shouldn't move forward with this piece of supportive housing. And I've listened to the people in Riverside, man. Your voices are coming in loud and clear. It's easy for me. I live in Glenmary, and some of us have lived in Roslyn. Some of us live in other, to make the decisions based on our town. But I'm doing what I think is best for the downtown. I've talked to the manager of the Bank of Montreal. I've listened to people. Am I getting ramped up? Yeah, I'm just trying to say that I'm listening, and I just want to support this because I believe it's in the best interest of the city of Trail.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mayor Jones.
Thank you very much.
I just want to echo what my fellow councillors have said, and I'd like to thank Councillor Butler for his friendly amendment. We have worked hard since last November. And sometimes people say, what are you guys doing? Well, there's things that we cannot talk about. And these are one of the things that we have been working diligently on, and we're not giving up. I can speak for every one of us.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, it's just tough. You guys think we're not doing anything. We're working really hard.
We appreciate it.
So, thank you, Councillor Martin. I do want to talk about the history of this a little bit as well. So this has been in my file since 2018 when I was first elected. So I can speak to this in relationship to Councillor Butler's amendment that he put forward. It's been a very difficult file. If you all remember the meeting that we had up on Roslyn Avenue when we were in the Gulch trying to get the shelter up there. Very, very difficult meeting as well. I have to agree with Councillor Butler though. I don't want this to be a legacy. I don't want this to be, something that we can't get completed before our second term on council. We turned down the previous temporary use permit on Roslyn Avenue for the same reasons, safety issues, concern that there wasn't appropriate staffing. Very difficult decision because we're in the same place today. We don't have the housing. We need housing to get people healthy. We're here tonight to decide on this temporary use permit on 2039 Roslyn Avenue, and we've done our homework again. We've taken the time to read the emails. We've worked with BC Housing as hard as we can, and I really appreciate the work that BC Housing has done this time. They've been very open, very transparent, very understanding about the situation that we're in. And Councillor Hanson is right, this is a human right, to have a bed or a room to go to at nighttime, to have a safe place to lay your head at night. And my hope is that this is the beginning, to give individuals a chance and some hope to a healthy life. We do need more housing. That's not a secret in this area. We don't have the appropriate land close enough to downtown trail that we need to build the proper shelter. We're land poor in trail, and Councillor Hanson can tell you that. We are in a crisis for housing, and it is a health crisis. So I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and we listened, we honestly did. We read your emails. I'm hopeful that what happens tonight is the right thing to do for the community, but we can't wait anymore and we have to move forward. Thank you. So, amendment to the recommendation. And we need a seconder for the amendment. Was Councillor Wilson?
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Carried unanimously. So all those in favor of the recommendation before you with the amendment?
Clarify is changing 3 to 1. All of the wording stays the same.
Okay. So that was carried unanimously? Yes. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, it's late. I thought we were voting on the amendment too. Okay. So it was carried unanimously, thank you.
Thank you.
On to CEO McClure for the second one. Okay. So the next recommendation that we have before you is that if the temporary use permit is issued, council directs staff to enter into a lease agreement with BC Housing at a nominal annual lease rate to allow an emergency shelter to operate on the city-owned lands located at 2039 Riverside Avenue and vicinity, commencing on the effective date of the temporary use permit and continuing for a term not to exceed 6 years. So the recommendation is before you. I actually believe that that has to be changed to not to exceed 1 year at this time. Okay.
I believe it would be 4.
4.
4.
4? Yes. I'll second. Okay. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. The next recommendation is that if the temporary use permit is issued, council directs staff to provide a letter to the Minister of Housing requesting that the province of British Columbia exercise statutory immunity as per section 14(2) of the Interpretation Act to allow shelter operations to continue at 1458 Bay Avenue until such time as the emergency shelter is operational on the city and crown-owned properties at 2039 Riverside Avenue and vicinity.
I'd like to make an amendment to that. Move that with a friendly amendment, not to exceed 6 months. So actually a time frame for them to actually have things up and running. But this is the amount of time of giving statutory immunity, so it's limiting statutory immunity. Okay.
That they have 6 months.
This is on the line. Only from 6 months of the issue. Okay, sorry, I withdraw that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
It's okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, is there a, someone to make a recommendation, please? Councillor Butler, seconder, Councillor Martin, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Okay, thank you. So, the next item on the agenda is the Glover Road Engineering and Detailed Design Award.
You can introduce it.
Okay, you want me to read it out?
4.2, I'll just say what it is.
4.2, Glover Road Engineering and Detailed Design Award.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So before you, is the Glover Road Engineering and Detailed Design Award. Some background for you, in 2015, the city began to work to replace Glover Road sidewalk and handrail system. True Consulting was awarded this work through a proposal call process. The project was delayed and resurrected in 2019 when it became apparent that more than merely the sidewalk and handrail system required attention. As noted in the reporting before you, the detailed design has been delayed as more factors to rectify the issues are introduced, including new curb and gutter, improved overland stormwater management, and the installation of a proper stormwater system, among a few others. The work is felt important at this time in order for the project to be shelf-ready, in order to take advantage of granting opportunities that may become available in the future. True has been involved with the Glover Road design since 2015, and as such are the most appropriate to cost effectively complete the work. And the proposal they have submitted is within the approved budget. Therefore, it is being recommended that council waive the purchasing policy and direct toward the engineering and detailed design work for Glover Road to True Consulting in the amount of $54,400 plus applicable taxes, fees, and charges.
Any questions or comments? Okay, Councillor Benson is moving it, Councillor Hanson a second, all those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Queen Elizabeth Park Playground Replacement Award. Ms. Mucini?
Thank you, Your Worship. Following an audit in 2022 of the 13 playground structures in the city, Queen Elizabeth Park was identified as ranking first in terms of requiring replacement. Factors going into its ranking include age, CSA compliance, and the highest potential for injury amongst the players. A request for proposal was issued on July 11th and closed August 9th, with 3 proposals being received. These proposals were reviewed by staff and weighted based on certain criteria. The proposal received from Green Roots Play Equipment received the highest rating, is CSA compliant, and is within the established capital budget approved for this project. Therefore, it is being recommended that council award the contract for the Queen Elizabeth Playground equipment replacement to Green Roots Play Equipment with a base price of $91,986 plus all applicable taxes, fees, and charges.
Moved. Councillor Hanson, seconder, Councillor Wilson. All those in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. Item 4.4 is the proclamation request, the wrongful conviction day. The recommendation is that council proclaim October 2nd, 2023 as wrongful conviction day in the city of Trail. Can someone make that motion? Councillor Wilson and Councillor Cashman. Okay, we have 2 bylaws.
All there. Okay.
Sorry, I missed that. Oh, it's getting, I'm really, okay. Item number 5, we have 2 bylaws before you. The first bylaw is the zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 293023 for the 3rd reading. Mrs.
Yes, and I will remind you, Mayor Jones, that you did declare conflict as well as Councillor Wilson. It doesn't matter when the bylaw received first and second reading. So if we could ask Councillor Cashel to finish.
Oh, no. I'm gonna make some big changes right now, folks. Stand by. Stand by. Yes.
Just read the 5.1 adjusted title.
5.1 zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 2930, comma, 2023, third reading. Any input?
No, that's all.
Oh, that's it?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Acting Mayor Cashel. The property located at 2144 Sixth Avenue is owned by Kevin and Allison Santori. Mr. Santori has applied to rezone the property from single-family residential R1 to single-family residential R1S to allow for a secondary suite to be constructed on the property. Zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 2930 received first and second readings on June 12th. A public hearing with respect to this zoning bylaw was held earlier in this evening, just prior to the start of the regular council meeting. Based on the input received, it would now be appropriate, which was minimal, if not any, it would be appropriate for council to consider third reading and potential adoption of the bylaw this evening by separate resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Third reading?
Yeah.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Carried unanimously.
Okay, so it would now be appropriate for you to consider adoption.
All right. Is that a motion for adoption? Can I get that motion? Councilor Butler, seconded by Councilor Hanson. All in favor? And it's a unanimous adoption.
Thank you. And before we move on from this matter, it would also be appropriate to proceed concurrently with the resolution for a development variance permit, which was also requested in the application. The applicant is seeking a variance to the side yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.3 meters, and the rear yard setback from 1.2 meters to 0.6 meters. These variances are primarily being requested in order to utilize the existing structure that's on the property.
So moved.
We have motions for that from Councilor Hanson, seconded by Councilor Benson. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sheen. Can I get a bump in a second?
Thank you, Councilor Cashel.
You're welcome, Mayor Jones.
Just kidding. Zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 2931, 2023 for the first and second reading. Ms. Hutchins?
Thank you, Your Worship. The property located at 328 Roslin Avenue is the former Star Grocery, and it was recently purchased by Amanda and Paul Eisnor. The property is currently zoned neighborhood commercial zone C3, as it was zoned appropriately at the time of adoption of the zoning bylaw to allow for its use as a grocery store. Mr. and Mrs. Eisnor indicate they intend to open a retail flooring store selling tile, hardwood, vinyl, as well as accessories associated with flooring. As retail sales are not a permitted use in the C3 zone, an application is before you to rezone the property to special highway commercial zone C6. As noted in the reporting before you, most properties contained within the Roslin Avenue corridor are zoned special highway commercial C6. And in fact, the C3 zoning that the former Star Grocery property enjoys is actually an anomaly in the neighborhood. The council proceeds with first and second readings this evening. The matter will be scheduled for public hearing for the purpose of allowing the public to make representations to council respecting matters contained within the bylaw. Additionally, in this instance, given its proximity to the highway corridor, the matter will be referred to the Ministry of Transportation to review any impacts or concerns the ministry may have. Accordingly, zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 2931, 2023 is before you for your consideration, and it is being recommended that you proceed with first and second readings of the bylaw this evening.
I'll make that motion. Mayor Jones?
Councilor Cashel, Councilor Hanson. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to, council committee reports, please. Councilor Benson.
Thank you, Your Worship. On July 22nd, I participated in a municipal leader tour of the Shambhala Music Festival along with other elected leaders from our area, Castlegar, Nelson, and Salmo. We received a tour of the grounds. We received a tour of their drug testing facility and harm reduction services. It was an impressive day. And from an organizational lens, it was really neat to see from start to finish, people really like living their values of looking out for each other, and it was nice. It was a nice day. We left at 8 o'clock. On August 1st, I attended the Trail Cat Committee meeting. Overdose Awareness Day is coming up on August 31st, so please keep your eye on their social media for more information. On August 12th, I attended the Trail Market and Pride celebration on the Esplanade. I assisted at the City of Trail Library Pride tent table, welcoming people to the celebration and handing out stickers. So I just want to give a thank you to the incredible market for a fantastic event, and Addison Over from Pride Trail for her passion for including our Pride as part of the market this year. I'd like to congratulate Trails Jackson Conkin he won the Ironman in Calgary this year. Did you read about this? Awesome. And he did it in under 4 hours, and I was just wondering if it's something we could send a congratulatory note for him from council, because that's pretty awesome. And then finally, I want to thank our BC Wildfire and local fire departments for all their hard work extinguishing the fire that happened in Trail last Sunday. This weekend, I think we've seen the absolute devastation in our province. This weekend, especially in all summer, unprecedented wildfire season. And we felt firsthand how easily it could happen here in Trail. So thank you to Chief Derby, firefighters, Local 941, Tech Trail Operations for Emergency Services, and all the other volunteer departments in our area that attended so quickly. We're very grateful. That's my report.
Thank you, Councilor Benson. Councilor Butler.
Thank you, Your Worship. So on behalf of council, I attended the following events, and the 12th one, many of us attended the Pride celebrations, the Incredible Farmers Market, which was a great day, so thank you to everyone who helped put that on. On the 15th, along with several other council members, I attended the Shelter Barbecue, which was presented by Ferrero Foods and Danny Ferrero at the grill. It was a nice way to sort of break down some different lines that might be there in the community, stigmas. On the 17th, along with Councilor Hanson, I attended the Downtown Perfect Committee meeting. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councilor Butler. Councilor Cashel.
Nothing to report, but I do want to say thank you to Mayor Jones and my council colleagues for tonight's support and for doing what you do. Appreciate you guys being on the team, and just want to say thank you for that. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor Jones.
Thank you, Councilor Cashel. Councilor Martin. Oh, sorry, Hanson. You moved.
So the 15th, that I attended the supportive housing committee meeting, which it's things about tonight were brought up and discussed, and they are continuing to look and find and search for permanent location. It's forefront in there on the list. The 16th, Mayor Jones and I actually had a meeting for the Trail Health and Environment Committee, which was great. Just reflecting on our meetings that we had with the Minister of Health, the Minister of Environment, and all of the partners in June, and kind of the next steps in our September meeting going forward about that engagement with our partners. As well, on the 17th with Councilor Butler, attended the Downtown Trail Improvement Committee, and really looking forward to their upcoming presentation on crime prevention through environmental design, which they're going to be coming to council for a workshop about ways of working with your spaces in your building to prevent crimes and any issues. So that's all.
Thank you, Councilor Hanson. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Jones. It's been a pretty quiet month for me, so I have nothing to report.
Okay. Councilor Wilson?
Very quiet month for me as well, but I want to say thank you to Sandy
Sandy kept us very organized leading up to this meeting with all the emails and all the moving parts. I would be lost, I think, without you keeping us going there.
I'll second that motion.
Really appreciate it, and thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Okay, my report is very short as well. I've been attending the same events as most of Councillor Dermott. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank our community tonight for coming out, expressing their concerns, to talking to us. This wasn't an easy subject that we had tonight. We had to do a lot of work on it. We paid attention, we listened, we did our homework, like I said before, but I think that for me, it's kind of ironic that we're sitting here talking about a shelter for 25 people when we have people in Kelowna at this time that are losing their homes. And, I kept thinking about that tonight. Everybody deserves a home and a place to lay their heads at night. And I really want to thank council for the work that they did. I thought that we did the right thing tonight. We're not gonna make everybody happy, but housing is important. And it's a basic need and it's a human right. So thank you everyone for even being a part of it tonight. Thank you, Sandy and Mr. McClure for the work that you put into it. And we really have to send a big shout out to BC Housing as well. They came back to the table with us, and after we turned down the temporary use permit at Roslyn Avenue, they came back to the table with us and have been working really hard with us. And I really appreciate the time and their effort on this time around. It's been great work. So on to item number 7, the consent agenda. The Trail and District Public Library 2023 second quarter report. The recommendation is that the item on the consent agenda be received for information. Councillor Martin and Councillor Butler, any comments or questions on the report? Okay, thank you. And number 8, any new business tonight?
All in favor on the new setup?
Sorry, do we need a motion for that?
Or is it right?
Motion?
I wrote down that it was.
Yeah. Okay. So all those in favor then, the recommendation carried unanimously, thank you. Okay, new business.
I got about 5 things. No, I'm not, sorry.
Item number 9, department reports. We have 2 reports before you. And the recommendation is that these reports be received for information. So we have the Regional District Kootenai Boundary Building Department report and the Bylaw Enforcement Department report. Can I have someone make that recommendation? Councillor Cashel, Councillor Wilson, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. And the next item on the agenda is adjournment. Councillor Cashel, Councillor Benson.